I'm feisty.
I think your tone of voice, Martin, answers your own question. United lost again. Spurs lost again. Is Pochettino under pressure? Is Solskjaer under pressure? And is it Liverpool's league to lose? All that and more. But first of all, it's time for your latest headlines.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 3, Boris Johnson says he'll speak to Donald Trump's office if necessary about an American diplomat's wife who was involved in a fatal car crash in the UK. Anne Sakoulas left the country after 19-year-old Harry Dunn was killed in a head-on collision with her car in August, claiming diplomatic immunity. The PM says he hopes she'll come back and speak to police.
That's a point that we've raised or are raising today with the American ambassador here in the UK, and I hope it will be resolved very shortly. If we can't resolve it, then of course I will be raising it myself personally with the White House.
135 people have been arrested in the first few hours of a 2-week climate protest in London. Crowds have been cheering as officers took people away and several main roads are blocked in the city. Extinction Rebellion members are urging the government to do more to protect the planet. A Scottish court has dismissed a legal challenge aimed at forcing the Prime Minister to ask the EU for a Brexit delay if he doesn't get a deal done in time. A law passed last month means Boris Johnson has to ask for an extension if no agreement's made by the 19th of October. The PM said he won't break the law, but insists the UK will be leaving on the 31st. An MP's been suspended from the Labour Party after being accused of sexual harassment. Stephen Hepburn, who represents Jarrow in Gateshead, has been an MP since 1997. In sport, Aston Villa say they're disgusted and appalled by a video which appears to show fans singing a racist song about two of their own players. The footage was posted on social media following Saturday's Premier League win at Norwich. And a large grey-blue humpback whale's been spotted in the River Thames near London. It measures at least 16 feet and has been seen multiple times just east of the capital. That's the latest. I'm Anna Russell.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Man United might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, let him sign it, let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there, give him what he's done now since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Ollie's at the wheel, man, he's doing it, he's doing his thing. Man United are back.
Irrelevant, boring, old, yesterday's news, out of the way, excuse me, we're coming in.
The best United can really hope for this year is, a top 10 finish.
They've cocked it up.
United. It never rains, but it pours. You heard from a selection of people there. Rio Ferdinand, Eddie Hearn in the mix, former United striker Dan Nardiello, and of course Gary Neville as well. It's Love Sport Drive, and our top story is Manchester United. They lost again to Newcastle. We're going to be looking at the positive of that result as well. Young Matty Longstaff, 19 years of age, scoring a belter on his Premier League debut in front of those home fans. Just extraordinary. If only there was such good news for Tottenham. They lost again, a 3-0 defeat to Brighton with another young lad, Connolly, bagging twice for the Seagulls. Where now for Pochettino? He doesn't want to go. They don't want to sack him, but something has to change. It has to improve. And Liverpool have the biggest ever lead in this stage in a Premier League season since the competition started back in 1992. Is it their league to lose? We're also looking over to Italy and asking just how good Allegri is, how good Conte is as well. Juve beat Inter. Are they going to hold on to the Scudetto for yet another year? But on United, Martin, were you surprised to see Newcastle win that game?
No, not at all. No, we had many discussions before the game that United would be the favourites. But with their injuries, because they have got quite a lot of injuries, Johnny, at the moment. Luke Shaw, I think he's out. Martial is out. Wan-Bissaka is out. There's a couple of others guys as well that are out at the moment from that United team. Pogba obviously out. So if you put that full team together, then they would probably have given a far better performance than what they did yesterday. But with the energy and the positive enthusiasm of those Longstaff brothers playing together in central midfield, it seemed as though the supporters got behind the team. It seemed it galvanised the club. And, I thought they were superb. Absolutely gave it everything. And that's all you can ask for.
When you're talking about that passion, it was telling that it was a local lad who'd scored that goal. We had Andy Carroll, another local lad, who rather than jumping on Matty Longstaff, just pointed at him and gave him his moment in front of the Gallagher end. And we had those three local boys celebrating together with the Newcastle faithful in big games, in tough games. How much of a difference does it make to have local boys who get what it means to the supporters?
I think it does, Johnny. Yeah, I can actually see where you're coming from on that one. And I think a lot of credit, because all the managers that we talk about always are saying, will he get the sack? Will he get the sack? Is he going to get the sack? He's got one more game, blah, 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 onwards, onwards, onwards. We hear it every day now. Back page of every newspaper every day, someone else is going to get the sack. I think Steve Bruce has got to get an awful lot of credit for a brave move to put an 18-year-old into his debut after the performance last week when they lost, 5-0 at Leicester. It was a tremendous move to put him in. He was rewarded, and I don't think he's actually got the credit today for actually giving that boy his full league debut in Newcastle's team to get the winning goal. And it just galvanised, as I said earlier, the whole club. The stadium was absolutely buzzing every minute from start to finish with the way that they played with such great passion.
And from the United point of view, they had 68% of possession. It wasn't bad football. They were keeping it quite nicely. You've talked before about the issue of selling Lukaku and not replacing him. Is this a game where a real battering ram, a conventional centre-forward, would have let them unlock that door?
It would have certainly helped, but once you've got those many injuries, doesn't matter who your manager is, and we're seeing similar at the moment to Man City, without Vincent Kompany obviously going to Anderlecht, and then Laporte having such a serious knee injury. Laporte is a top quality player, and when he was not fit, Kompany would come in and play. And now you're seeing good players not playing for City, and they're losing their way and they're losing games. And that is the same for any team, any manager at any level. If your best players don't play, you're struggling. And to be fair to Solskjaer at Manchester United, they have got a lot of players missing and results would be affected.
Well, after the game, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer felt the need to apologise to fans for the performance and admitted that the team is a long way from where it needs to be.
Every game should be one that we should look to win at this club. But at the moment, we can't win games, especially away from home. But we got a perfect opportunity to get players back and raise our game, raise the supporters' moods with Liverpool coming up.
I completely recognise that the injuries are a big factor here, Martin, but how has a club of the size of United got to the point where its strength in depth is so shabby? Under Ferguson, if one of your stars got injured, that was a shame, but someone else brilliant would come in. If Rooney hurt his leg, you'd play Berbatov. That's not the case anymore.
No, it's certainly not. And that is not down to Solskjaer.
No, it's not.
And that has been in place now for a good few years. And they've had David Moyes, who's been a successful manager, and I think it was always going to be very, very difficult for him to take over from Sir Alex Ferguson. And then Louis van Gaal, he's a top manager. He was deemed as not good enough for Ed Woodward. And then Mourinho, one of the best and most successful managers in the world football, history of football, Champions League wins. He's been deemed not good enough. And now, you've got to say, a manager that's managed Cardiff City and Mulder has been given that job. And now the hatchet men are out for him. So where would they go from here? Who would want to take that squad on? And we spoke last week, and Guy, our producer, is such a mad Manchester United fan. And we were chatting about where they could finish, and he was talking about them being in the top 6. I don't see them being anywhere near the top six. Even when they've got their players fit, they're not near the top six. They need that centre-forward that you're talking about. And to sell Lukaku without having a centre-forward or two lined up to come in is absolutely scandalous.
Well, United legend Gary Neville gave his damning verdict on the way the club is being run in the aftermath of yesterday's result.
They've cocked it up. They're responsible for this. Poor recruitment, poor selection of, managers and then going with them and then pulling off them. Van Gaal won the FA Cup, then they sacked him. Jose Mourinho, they sacked him after 2.5 years when they'd given him a contract 6 months before. So they've pulled off managers in terms of what would be the sort of thread of it, and they've gone for completely different styles of managers in Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho. They've now gone with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's taken the club in a completely different direction again. If you change direction as a board every 2 years and you invest 250 million quid along the way in each manager, you're going to have big problems. And Manchester United are basically now getting the pain that they deserve for poor decisions at board level.
I think he's spot on, Martin, but do you agree that in a funny way it wouldn't matter who was the manager under this regime? Do you think that if we brought in an Allegri, a Pochettino, a Capello, anyone to Manchester United, it would not be better than things are under Solskjaer?
There is absolutely no way top managers would want to go in there and work with those restrictions. Mourinho mentioned it on many occasions, his desire to get a centre-back in to play. Yes, some of Mourinho's signings have not been good, but without them having full say on who comes in, given a budget, and they can pick who comes in, they're nowhere near it. They are nowhere near it. They still need 4 or 5 players. They need 2 decent centre-forwards, not 1, but 2, to lead the line as that number 9 up front, and somebody that can also take his place to play in other games to rest that main man. They are nowhere near it, and I cannot see, until there's changes behind the scenes, above Ollie, below Ed Woodward, to take responsibility for the football, then something has to change. If not, they're just going to continue to struggle.
Well, another team who is struggling are, of course, Tottenham Hotspur. Pochettino has again talked about that importance of being given control over the transfers in and the transfers out. But the way I see it, he had that this summer, give or take. I know it all had to get ticked off by Levy, but Sessegnon was his man. He got him. He said he wanted Lo Celso potentially as a replacement for Eriksen. He kept Eriksen and he got Lo Celso. And Ndombele was definitely his man and he got him. So what's the problem?
Well, we don't know that he's got what he wanted.
Well, he got some of what he wanted.
That's not what it is. You know, you can't. I'm not sure you can actually say, well, he's got everything he wanted, because there's several players there that are currently there that were told that they could leave and they were surplus and they weren't getting new contracts. And quite clearly, as anybody would know, you tell footballers that they're not going to be in the team, that they can go and talk to Watford like Danny Rose. Vertonghen, you're not going to get a new contract. It was mentioned last week that they may give him a contract now. But last summer, why didn't they offer him a deal after the Champions League? And then when the manager comes out and says we finished 27 points behind Man City, we need serious work here on this squad. We need to freshen it up with fresh new faces. And we've seen, Johnny, over the weekend, there was some stats revealed. The same back four and goalkeeper plus Dyer 5.5 years ago is the same to what it is now and what played at Brighton on Saturday. Now, that can't be right. That can't be right. He needed to freshen that group up. Everybody knew after the Champions League he wanted to change it. And then his comment that if we'd have won, I would have left comment. That would have left a grey and clouds floating over Pochettino's intent, his thought process. Do the players want to be here? He doesn't want to be here. Does he want to go? Is he thinking of quitting? Has he been thinking of quitting? And we've got all these players, including Dyer, and then Vertonghen wasn't even in the squad for the first 2 games. He was sitting in the stand with a T-shirt on and a pair of sunglasses. I mean, something was going on there with him, without a shadow of a doubt. So there's a lot of problems going on behind the scenes there, and I think that group's been together too long and probably got a little bit stale.
I think you're right, and it's important for us all to remember that Poch is still relatively young in managerial terms. His career's in its infancy. This is the first time he's been at a club long enough for that squad to go stale. Maybe he genuinely didn't think it could happen. And is there an argument, Martin, to say this is his first crisis as a manager? And is it important that he stays and fights through it? Because ultimately, if he wants to be one of the world's best, if he wants to be an elite coach at the likes of United, at the likes of Real Madrid, then he's going to occasionally find himself in a situation where the club aren't performing, where something's going wrong, where players don't want to be there, where he does need to change things, and he is going to have to take them from bad into good. Dealing with these tough situations is surely a manager's job.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, Johnny, he was the first one to say in the summer that the team needed freshening up, the changing room needed freshening up. So it's not as if he's coming across something there that's new to him. And I think he explained publicly, so I'm sure he must have done to the chairman, Daniel Levy, that we need to change things. We need to, if we're going to catch up with Man City, we need to do some serious business in the transfer market. And the signings he made, yes, he probably did get what he wanted, but I don't think it's anywhere near what he really wanted, and that was a new back four and probably a new goalkeeper.
And he might well need a new goalkeeper now, not necessarily for the long term, but in the short term. Hugo Lloris's injury looked very, very unpleasant. How big a blow is that?
Not massive.
You don't think?
No, I thought he was at fault for 3 of those goals last week against Bayern Munich. Good finishing, but I still think he should have done better with those. I thought it was a horrendous effort, a horrendous mistake for the goal against Brighton. Just ball clipped into the goal line and he just completely dropped it before he fell over and hurt his arm. No, that was a terrible mistake in the first minute, and he'd have been very, very disappointed with himself over that. And of course, now it gives a chance to a new goalkeeper, Gazzaniga, who I sold to Tottenham from Gillingham when I was there for £400,000. So I'm sure he'll do very well.
Did he impress you at Gillingham?
Well, if you want the honest opinion, I didn't even know who he was when I got there. And he walked across the training pitch on the first day of pre-season, a nice sunny day, all the players have got new kit on, and then I saw this bloke walking across. He was about 6'5". He had this unbelievable tan and he had hair going down past his shoulders, and it was like, he looks like a male model. He looks like, oh my God. And so someone said, oh, this is Paolo. I said, oh, Paolo, how you doing, mate? And I sort of looked up. He's like crouch height. And then it was like, good to see you. And he had a pair of gloves in his hand, for the goalkeeping drill. So I realised he was probably the goalkeeper. And then he said to me, can I see you after training, Martin? So I saw him after training, and he told me that his agent was coming over to sort out this deal to go to Tottenham. So I rang the chairman, and it was only a couple of days later he went to Tottenham. But a great guy, very laid back, very tall, and the smoothest, coolest character you could ever meet.
And lovely hair. Coming up, Manchester City and Everton.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
I am what would happen if the comments section became human and ran for president.
This is Love Sport.
Neil Custis, who writes about Manchester United for The Sun and is also a friend of the show, tweeted yesterday, there is literally only Liverpool now not in a crisis in the Premier League. Well, on the face of it, you'd have to agree with him. After 8 games, the Reds are 8 points clear. Manchester City dropped 26 points across the last 2 seasons. They've now dropped 8 in their last 8 games. They've barely got any fit defenders. Martin, is this now Liverpool's league to lose?
Yeah, I think it is, Johnny. I think it is. It's the fact that Man City never replaced Laporte. Company going off to Anderlecht, and then Laporte's serious injury. He was a key main player for them last year. And the fact on Sunday they only got 2 shots, I believe. I stand to be corrected on that. 2 shots against Wolves, who had played in Europe on Thursday against Besiktas and got back on the early hours of Friday morning, and for Wolves to get out there and put in that sort of performance, awesome performance. But I think it shows, Johnny, standing back a little bit, you can win one Premier League, magnificent. To win it the next year, the second time, is a tough ask on the player's mindset, mentally more than physically. To do it a third time after having achieved it, and some of those players are getting a little bit older now. I think it was a tough ask for Man City, whereas when at the start we said that Liverpool would probably win it, as it would take too much out of them.
Well, I had to say, you said that. I disagreed with you, and it's looking like I was very, very wrong.
You were, Johnny. You were very, very wrong, Johnny.
I was.
Yes, Johnny, you were very wrong.
But I think...
You tell me a team that's won it 3 times on the spin, and I can't think they have.
Well, this is the thing, and I think I was Manchester United supporting Guy Watts has just gone, only Man United, yes, thank you, Guy. I think I was underestimating...
Not recently.
Well, true. I think I was underestimating the extent to which... It must be very, very hard, as you say, if you're a Sergio Aguero and you've had your Aguero moment and you've won it many times, you're interested in the Champions League, but actually you've probably got half an eye on the Golden Boot rankings and you're not that fussed about whether you win it or not.
I can see where you're coming from. If I was Aguero, and my guess is, at the end of the season, he'll be looking for his next move and where he's going to be playing for the next couple of years, probably back in Argentina.
He said in the past that's where he wants to end his career.
Has he?
Yeah, but he also said he wasn't going to leave City until they win the Champions League, so he could be there for a while. But in terms of...
He'd be 43.
Well, exactly.
With a Zimmer.
Limping off the bench every once in a while. It's a lot to try and win games without your fit centre-halves, and I completely appreciate they're in crisis. But how can it be that 2 injuries, and it is only 2 injuries, can take Manchester City from being favourites to win every game to looking unbelievably shaky? Laporte is out, Stones is out, they let Company go, they let Mangala go. And I know Pep Guardiola is a brilliant manager. I know we constantly glorify him as a genius of modern football, but actually, did he drop the ball here?
Yeah, I think he did. Letting, what was his name, Mangala go, I thought was an error. I thought they should have kept him, especially with the Champions League and all the other cups that you've got. I thought they would have needed players to play in those games to protect and look after some of his more senior players. But no, Johnny, after doing it for 2 years, it takes an awful lot out of those players, focus physically and mentally, to get that performance levels back up for a third year. And some of them are getting a little bit older. David Silva has already said that he's retiring at the end of the season. This is his last season, and then Company's gone. So that mix, that dynamic mix at the top end of the table, at top end of the dressing room, has gone. And with Liverpool, those players are still on the up, whereas some of those Man City players are on the down.
But when we talk about the psychological difficulty of City remotivating themselves, having won 2 in a row, there's got to be a psychological difficulty for Liverpool there as well, because not only have they got previous of choking league titles after a win, they did it last year. This is the biggest lead that any team has ever had at this stage in the Premier League season. 8 points from 8 games.
Johnny, you can't say they choked that last year. They got how many points? 100 and what points?
96, I think.
96 points.
97.
97 points. It's an unbelievable amount of points.
But they were 5 points clear and didn't win it.
That's an unbelievable amount of points. 97 points is a massive amount of points. It was a fantastic effort, as well as winning the Champions League. That's, for me, that's not choking. They're in a really, really good position.
Well, they are now.
And I think there's more to come from them, a lot more.
If you're Jurgen Klopp, how do you keep them focused? How do you keep them completely staring down the barrel? None of this 8 points ahead. None of this it's our league to lose, because that is going to be the media rhetoric from today onwards. How can he keep their feet on the ground?
Continue to work hard, grounded, work hard, focus, passion, drive. I don't think he'll talk about it too much, Johnny. It'll be just business as usual. Just carry on. And sometimes, Johnny, the more you talk about it, and you could look at them all in the eye and get them in the dressing room and say, we're 8 points clear. Come on, this is ours now. This is ours. We've got to do it. Panic and stress and anxiety are creeping in. No, it's just do the next training session, play the next game, do what you've been doing, continue to do what you've been doing. Simple.
Well, look at Stevie G. This does not slip now. That's exactly when you do slip. And he gave exactly that speech, Martin.
Yeah, exactly. When, I'm not being funny, going back a few years ago when we was at Gillingham, you're getting past that January, February, and you're still top of the league like we were, March time, and you've all of a sudden got 10 or 12 games. You're thinking, what am I going to say to them? Well, Johnny, we didn't do any team talks. We had our chat on a Friday lunchtime after training in the centre circle, after doing the free kicks, the attacking and the defending play. We got all the lads together and I said, I'll see you tomorrow at 1:45.
And that was it.
They knew what they had to do. They knew what was needed. They didn't need me to stand in front of them Churchillian type speeches. And I'd get to the ground about 12:30, sit in my office watching the football on the telly. And when they came back in from the pre-match warm-up at 1:45, or 1:45, I'd say, all the best, boys, go and do your stuff, play well, all the best to you, love you to bits, go and do your stuff. Out they go, and I'd see them after the game. So sometimes that extra stress of desire and drive and fist pumping. And it was interesting, Johnny, about 6 months ago, the New Zealand All Blacks rugby coach, he said, we don't do team talks. They're a thing of the past. He said, we do our stuff on the training pitch and the players just take it on to the game. So what do we need a team talk for? And I thought, I never used to do team talks either.
Get him into the rugby team.
Well, it's a similar philosophy, it's it's what perhaps the fans might expect when they're in the pub having a few pints trying to pump their team up, but with the players, you've got to keep them on a good level.
Well, there's, of course, the famous Roy Keane anecdote where he said before a game, I thought I knew what the group might need, that we didn't need a big team talk. It was Tottenham at home. I thought, please don't go on about Tottenham. We know all about what Tottenham is about. They are nice and tidy, but we'll do them. Ferguson came in and said, lads, it's Tottenham. And that was it. Brilliant. Keep it simple and the results will come. If that's the case, they're clearly not keeping things simple in the blue half of Merseyside. 18th in the table, in that relegation zone. What advice would you give Marco Silva in this situation?
Well, he's dropped the centre forward over from Italy. What's his name?
Moise
Keane. And the lad that's gone in there has scored 4 goals in 3 games. Calvert-Lewin. So he's gone in and done quite well. It seems they're poor on defending set plays, which is often the way it goes when you have a team that plays fantastic technical football. A little bit like Man City, they're poor on set plays, and most of their goals they can see come from free kicks and corners, as we saw in the Champions League semi-final. But no, for him, he's got a 2-week break now. I would say with all the money that they've spent, there'd be question marks being asked at board level. His boss has probably called him in for a chat over this weekend or this morning and said, what's going on? How do you feel it's going? We're in 8 games, 7 points, -7 goal difference. It ain't happening how we expected it to be happening. How do you feel and how do you see it going? Because they will want an explanation as to what is happening out on the field and why results have been disappointing. What can he say to that? Well, he'd have to say, well, we haven't been creative enough, we haven't been tough enough to beat, and there certainly are question marks that are going to be raised against him right at this moment.
They're not going to get relegated.
Who?
Everton.
Yeah, but why can you say that? They've played 8 games now. This is not after 3 or 4 games. 8 games. After 8 games, you've actually got a picture of what's roughly going to be. And when we spoke last week, Guy laughed at me. I said, Manchester United, hold on a minute. They lose this game, and then they've got a tough game next. They play Liverpool, don't they? I think they play Liverpool.
They do, yeah.
All of a sudden, to forget the history and the magnificent institutional football club of what it was, all of a sudden, they're right on the line. And with injured players to come back, that's all well and good. But if you're losing games and confidence is gone, it's going to be very, very tough for them. And you cannot say then it won't get relegated. You can't.
Well, get in touch. WhatsApp us 0208 70 20 558. Are United and Everton too good to get relegated? Are they too big to go down? Coming up, Juventus. They seem to be too big to be beaten.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen, with you till 7. And we're joined on the line by Adam Digby, who's an Italian football expert. Good afternoon, Adam. Thanks for joining us. Juve beat Inter at the weekend. This was a big, big game. Conte's Inter had won every single fixture up until this point. Just how good are Juventus?
Good afternoon. Better than Inter, I would guess the answer to that. When it came to the match last night, they just had too many weapons, too many alternatives for Maurizio Sarri to go to, and he was able to change the system twice, and Inter had no answer for that. As good as they have been, it's very much a team still finding its way and still working its way back into contention. They've got a long way to go, and there's a lot to learn, really.
And from the Juventus point of view, there's been some difficulty with Ronaldo and Dybala not always combining perfectly. Are they starting to forge a bit of a partnership now?
Yeah, they are. Over the past year, when they were playing together, it was very much one would play well or the other, and never both at the same time, it seemed. But over the last 2-3 games, Maurizio Sarri seems to have found a way to get the best from both of them, and we've seen Dybala's got 2 assists on Ronaldo goals in the last 2 games, and he was unfortunate not to have another one last night as well.
And Sarri, how have the players, most importantly, and the supporters taken to his, what we've been told as Sarri ball? How's that been taken on board?
It's as it was at the start with Chelsea. It's a very slow process in seeing that. We saw the first tangible signs of it last night. I think there were 24 passes in the build-up to Juve's second goal, a touch for every outfield player in that move as well. And the fans definitely on side after beating Inter. That definitely never hurts. And the players seem to be really enjoying it after a few years of playing almost with the handbrake on under Max Allegri. They seem to be relishing the opportunity to press forward and push on for more goals even when they're winning.
And how is Aaron Ramsey settling in Turin? He was an unused substitute last night, but big things expected of him.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's still struggling to be 100% fit. He's not really been playing too often as they sort of nurse him back to full health. He was expected to start last night, but I think he's got a little bit more of a niggle than Juve first anticipated after playing 2 games in a week last week. So they gave him the night off, and they were looking at bringing him on at half time, but he was struggling in the warm up for that as well. So I think with a little bit of care and attention, he's been managed in the right way, and when he has played, he's been very effective in an advanced role just behind the 2 strikers, and I look forward to seeing a lot more of that.
And last night he played with 2 strikers, didn't he? With Dybala and Ronaldo. How do they combine together out on the field? How are they blending?
They're starting to be much better. This system that Sarri's come to since Douglas Costa got injured about a month ago, it really seems to be bearing fruit. We're going to a 4-3-1-2 and playing either Ramsey or Bernardeschi behind the front 2. It's allowing Juve to press much higher up the field and win the ball back quicker, and then obviously you've got players the calibre of Ronaldo and Dybala to hurt the opposition when you do that. So it's been very effective. It depends how much Sarri decides to stick with that once Costa comes back, because he did seem to favour him playing on the right-hand side of a front 3.
Adam, talk to me about Massimiliano Allegri, obviously taking a break from football at the moment, but very, very highly rated. Spent time at AC Milan and, of course, most successfully with Juventus as manager. We're hearing rumours he's learning English. We're hearing reports as well that he could be in line to take the Manchester United managerial job. Could you see him coming to the Premier League, and how good is he?
I could definitely see Max Allegri coming to the Premier League, and he's spoken English, to my knowledge, firsthand, at least 4 years. I've had a conversation in English with him in 2015, so I know that he speaks English already. He has been quite shy about it in the past, and he's probably taking lessons just to get even better at it. He's a perfectionist in everything he does. The only thing I would say about the links to Manchester United is that both Milan and Juve, he inherited already very successful and very well organised and settled teams. He took over Milan from Carlo Ancelotti, a Milan that already had Zlatan and Thiago Silva and led them to a league title. Took over at Juve after Antonio Conte when they won the league 3 years in a row already. Going into the current Manchester United team would be something that he's not really got the experience of, and I would urge a note of caution there. For all he has been very successful in his last 2 jobs, Allegri, he has gone in at the right time for him in both of those, and a rebuild isn't something that he's got very much experience with.
Interesting. In an interview with GQ in 2018, Allegri said, "I had a few passionate discussions with my own coaches, but it wasn't for more playing time or anything like that. It was because even then, as a player, I wanted to run the team my own way." Now, you've mentioned he's a perfectionist in everything he does. He's also a man who likes control. Would that kind of attitude work at Manchester United, and would it work with Ed Woodward?
Well, for all that, he does speak that way. He is very much that way. But for all of that, he's always had a sporting director in Italy. That's just the way that it is. So he does almost micromanage the coaching and the training of players. But that's nothing to do with the sporting director side. And he's never had anything like full control over the transfer market anyway. So I don't really see that being a problem at all, no.
And his style of play, is it like Sarri ball or is it park the bus Mourinho style?
It's probably, I wouldn't say halfway between the two. It's much closer to Mourinho, but not quite as dour, really. He's very much a pragmatist, very much results orientated, and wants to win rather than to entertain anybody, which was a criticism of him in the latter years at Juve. But when you've won the league 5 times in a row, your expectations and your hopes get a little bit higher, and your aspirations. And I think at Manchester United, a win would be a win right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly would. Adam, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Adam Digby there, who's an Italian football expert. Martin, I want to ask you about what he said on Allegri always inheriting strong squads. When he came into Juve, he inherited a very, very strong team. You've done both. You've come into teams that are looking quite handy, and you've come in to help teams that are struggling. How is the role of the manager different in those scenarios?
Oh yeah, Johnny, that's a funny one. That is. A couple of months to go before the end of the season, and the team that rings me up is just below that white line. You know that dotted white line at the bottom of the league,
the crucial one.
The crucial one, and there's probably about 6 or 7 points below that. And you look at that on the TV, and you go, "Oh my God, you're never going to keep them up." And then the owner rings up and says, "Well, we want you to come in and win us some games." And you say, "Well, we haven't won for 13 games. How do you expect me to get this lot to win?" He said, "Oh, I don't know." He said, "But that's what we want you to do." God, my God, Johnny, you don't sleep the whole night before the first day's training. And when you go to work, you find out there's the balls are all dirty. The changing rooms are all dirty. The bibs ain't been washed. Players turning up late. The training pitch hasn't been cut and marked. And all of a sudden you think, well, this is going to be quite straightforward. So you delay training by an hour, make sure the pitch gets cut, get the grass cut, get the lines marked up, have all the footballs washed, get all the kit clean. I went down the shop once and bought myself 12 leather size 5 footballs because we didn't have enough footballs. All of a sudden the players went, oh. The player that was late on the first day...
Cane him.
No, don't cane him. Just send him home.
Really? Just don't come back today. Done.
No, not today, Johnny.
Ever?
Don't come back.
What, he comes in late on the first day and you say, done, sacked?
Well, if you're late, like I was a little bit late today because all the bridges along the embankment around central London have all been closed. So I was a little bit late. But I rang Guy, my boss, and said, hold on a minute, I could be a bit late. I'll do my best to get there because of the bridges. If you just turn up late and just stroll out on the training pitch with that attitude of couldn't care less, I'll turn up when I like, without calling me or my coach and letting me know you're going to be late and you just think it's okay, that's not acceptable. So you don't cane them, you don't shout at them, you just said thanks very much, goodbye. Don't come back.
And you mean seriously a permanent goodbye here? Done.
Yeah. Well, one of them walked out. I've got to say, I'm not going to say what club, and I'm certainly not going to name his name. He walked out 10 minutes late without his laces done up and with no socks on. Like holiday mode.
What was he doing?
And I said, okay, good to see you. And he just walked over. He joined the group. He didn't even say, sorry, I'm late.
Hello.
No, nothing. He just stood there. And I said, okay, thanks very much. You can go now. And you'll be off for the rest of the week. And I tell you what, just leave it. So he was gone. So the rest of the players, all of a sudden then, Johnny thought, oh my God, if we don't do what he wants us to do, then we're history. We still paid him. We still got paid for staying at home. I don't know if you've ever done it, Johnny. If you're staying at home, you get absolutely bored, rigid. And it's the worst thing you want to do. But the message was out there, don't be late. I used to get into work at 7:30, used to leave home at 6 o'clock, and I ain't ever going to be late, ever. And I want to stay up. So we put in the standards from the very first moment that people came in, and then we encouraged them to be positive, enthusiastic, have self-belief, and show they're good players.
And that worked?
Most of the time.
And so that is obviously a very, very good way of coming into a situation where the guys are struggling, where there might be some attitude problems and stamping your mark on it straight away. If you go into a team that is already succeeding, would you still maintain that kind of hardline attitude, or would you be a bit softer?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances, Johnny. If you're going, trying to get in the playoffs or trying to go up, most of the time I've got jobs, Johnny, the teams have been struggling and they've needed, for want of a better way of putting it, to crack the whip on standards on and off the pitch, good values, good principles, politeness, kindness, and doing things the right way.
Sounds like they need you at Derby County, Martin.
Why? What's happened there?
Well, a little bit of bad behaviour.
Well, yeah, that was errors that they've. Well, I would say not errors, but they were mistakes with a capital letters. Really, those mistakes that they've made. There was serious issues, and when it's something like that, Johnny, as a manager, you'd normally get your CEO or the owner involved in that sort of stuff because it's police related, and that's probably a little bit above the manager's stance. You've got to get the club view on that, and you've got to take into account, your public figures, and you can't behave like that.
Well, it sounds like if Massimiliano, easy for me to say, Massimiliano
Do you speak Italian?
Not well. I did it at GCSE, so passable. I could order some pasta and say I like football. If he comes in to Manchester United, he's going to have to crack the whip.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family content insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com. When it came for this year's renewal, I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. Told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
The spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
I am a god in Scotland. They've never seen anyone live to 70.
This is Love Sport.
England cricket have a new head coach, and it's not the man we were expecting, Guy.
It's not quite the man we were expecting, Johnny. No, it's Chris Silverwood, who is an internal appointment. He's been the fast bowling coach for the last couple of years. He's also worked as head coach at Essex, where he both won a promotion and then won the county championship title the very next season. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in just a moment. But first, let's hear from a couple of former England captains on that appointment. Nasser Hussain first. These were his thoughts.
I think it's a good appointment. He's a very solid character, Chris Silverwood. Wherever he's been as a coach, he's been successful. He went over to Essex when they were in Division 2, took them into Division 1, and then immediately won the county championship.
There you go. That was Nasser Hussain. And now Bob Willis. This was what he had to say.
He gets the bowlers thinking for themselves, making their own decisions, not just rely on the captain where the field's going to be placed. Think for yourself. It's very important.
He's clearly a very impressive guy, someone for England to be excited about. And I think a big thing from the player's perspective is the optimism. He did all the usual spiel. He said he's thrilled and honoured to be England head coach. But more importantly, he said England have enormous potential for growth. Now, if you're one of those younger players, like a Jofra Archer, you'd be looking at those comments and thinking, hang on a minute, this is a guy who's been able to come into Essex and improve them immeasurably and improve individuals within that setup. If he can do the same with some of our youngsters coming through, the likes of Curran, for example, the likes of Pope, it's going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, I agree, Johnny. And what I like there about what Bob Willis said was the way that he empowers the players. You know, he's clearly one of these coaches that, as part of his shtick, if you like, will say to a player, look, this is my advice to you, but make sure that you are not just listening to what I say and doing it, you know, what I say as a result now, but taking it on board and storing it in your memory. So when you're out on a pitch and a situation in a game arises, you can act and react accordingly without needing to look up to the dressing room or, you know, thinking that I need to get a water carrier on to get a message down from the coach. And I like that about a coach. I don't like people micromanaging. I don't like them being too hands-on. I remember Peter Moores, who was given 2 cracks at the job and failed both times, was accused of being those things. I've never worked with these guys, of course, so I can't compare directly. You can only compare from what you hear. The surprise, though, really comes in the fact that towards the end of last week, although Chris Silverwood was initially one of the people we thought would be considered, at the end of last week, it seemed like Gary Kirsten. It seemed like, you know, things were almost being laid on for him. He was flying over for an interview. It seemed like all he needed to do was turn up at the interview, say, hello, I'm Gary Kirsten, I'd like to be the England coach.
But in a funny
way,
way,
get the job.
That would be fair enough. If we look at Gary Kirsten's CV, former India coach, former South Africa coach, this is a guy with oodles of experience at the highest level of international cricket. So it's arguably more of a risk to appoint someone like Silverwood, but in a funny way, Guy, is it also more ambitious?
It is more of a risk, I think, because if you go for Gary Kirsten, I don't think you can be accused of having given it to anyone except the most qualified person. I think Gary Kirsten is more qualified to do this. As you say, he's won a World Cup with India. He's taken South Africa, who he also played more than 100 tests for, to the top of the test rankings as well. And we know about our problems in test cricket in the last few years. I think with Chris Silverwood, they've slightly gone for something that I think will appeal to more fans, but I didn't at the fact that he's English. Martin, I don't know your thoughts on this, but Steve Thompson last week was very vociferous. The, of course, England World Cup winning hooker. He said that he wanted none of the idea of the English head coach in any sport, cricket, rugby. He's not a big fan of Eddie Jones not being English, and I do see where he's coming from. I think that you are going to inevitably have a stronger emotional connection to that team and to the players if you come from the same country. Whether or not that means that you are a better or a worse coach as a result, I don't know. I've not been in that environment, but I can see why certain players would want their coach to be from the country that they are playing for if you're talking about a national team coach. So I think it's a good decision in that regard. I think he'll have the goodwill of the media and of the fans and everyone on side from the start, which you might think isn't massively important, but I think it is. So I think in that sense it's a good appointment. And Johnny, yeah, I think the point, to go back to what you started with about the young players, I think that's a good one too. He's clearly able to work with players at all ends of the spectrum, whether you're James Anderson and Stuart Broad, or whether you're a young upcoming bowler at Essex. He's been successful with all those guys. He clearly has the respect of everyone he works with.
And has he won competitions?
He's won the county championship titles with Essex, which is as big as it gets in the county game. And so you can say that he hasn't got international kind of things on his CV, pedigree exactly, yeah. But he has been our fast bowling coach for the last couple of years. And while England haven't been the test team we'd want to be, I don't think you could say that our fast bowling hasn't been good.
So he has been involved
in
with
the setup, yes.
So he knows, he's got a good idea, he's been inside it, he's got that feeling, he's got that vibe, and he's clearly got the vibe of the England bowlers. And with the bowlers, Guy, it looks like we're probably soon going to be turning away from Broad and Anderson for a newer group coming through.
Well, we're going to have to at some point, Martin. We're going to have to. Those guys will not go on forever. James Anderson's 37, for God's sake, and now he's got a dodgy calf as well. The only thing that I would say in criticism of this decision is, particularly Test cricket, I think we need a new direction. We need a bit of new impetus. And this guy is coming, he's an internal appointment. He is coming from the same team.
Within the group.
Exactly. It's, you know, like promoting the assistant manager in football, and if things haven't been going well, you'd slightly question that. It's not as simple as that with England, because the white ball's been great, the red ball not so much. First half good, second half not so good, that sort of thing. So it's difficult to say, look, Chris Silverwood might have a load of new fresh ideas he's going to bring to the red ball game that he wasn't able to under Trevor Bayliss's watch. So who knows? I don't want to write him off by saying that. I just think as an observation in sort of general terms, to a point internally, normally suggests that you don't get a massive departure from what you've had before. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see. There's only one way to find out, and he's got that chance now.
Well, the obvious and slightly lazy, but also encouraging analogy to draw is Gareth Southgate, who, let's be honest,
very much so, Johnny.
When Gareth got the England football team job, I will admit that I was one of those people going, why on earth has Gareth Southgate got the England job? You know, he got relegated with Middlesbrough. He's been doing an all right job with the kids. He is not proven at international management. What we've got here with Silverwood is the same kind of thing. The powers that be, seeing him operating within that system on a daily basis, seeing his qualities that we as the public don't perhaps get to see. And with Southgate, it was a brave appointment, but what an appointment, by the way. And we could be dealing with another one just like that.
I think he's going to win the Ashes.
Down under.
Oh, yeah.
Down under.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I could just feel it.
Well,
Nathan Lyon
maybe
going to drop 8 catches.
On a serious
Pardon?
note.
What?
Nathan Lyon going to drop 8 catches.
Fumble Lion.
Surely he won't still be in the team. Surely. But yeah, seriously, if we're going to win back the Ashes, we need to win them down under.
Yeah.
And what do you need to win them down under? You need fast bowlers to be at their best.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone, certainly in England's opinion, that knows how to coach the fast bowlers, it's Chris Silverwood. So yeah, I think that's all a positive. My other, just one observation on his appointment would be, I wonder, although there have been rumours that Gary Kirsten came in apparently almost a little bit presumptuously to the interview, maybe the media reports that he'd read made him think he was nailed on for the job, that he didn't impress in the interview particularly. I wonder if there was a sense from some of the external candidates that they weren't particularly keen on the way that the England selectors in particular and the board as a whole have gone about dealing with some of the personnel issues. And what I mean by that is, Ashley Giles, of course, managing director of the ECB and the cricket side of things, has stuck by Joe Root very openly and very publicly, and in a way respect him for that. But on the other hand, if I were a coach, I would want to have had a say in who the captain was, and I'd be coming into an environment where I would feel like I wasn't able to change the captain if I wanted to. And then on the squad level, the squads have been picked for the tour to New Zealand, and I'd feel a little bit as a coach like, shouldn't I be having a say in that? Shouldn't I be having a say in whether I want Johnny Bairstow, Joss Butler, Ben Foakes, or someone else to be my wicketkeeper, for example? This is a big, big call. And you're coming in, and that decision's already been made for you. And I wonder if Chris Silverwood was not only going to be least bothered by that, maybe he'd had some say, some input into it. And I wonder if it all came together and they just thought, we'll go for the continuity option.
Guy, what is the tour after New
South
Zealand?
Africa starts Boxing Day, 4-test series. Big important
They
series.
haven't named that squad yet.
No,
have
they haven't. No.
So what I could imagine, and I can see where you're coming from, but that squad probably needed to be named at that moment in time. And now everybody that's going down to New Zealand has got that opportunity, if you do well, to get onto that trip to South Africa, which would be a great tour to be on, I would imagine,
Martin,
for those cricketers.
You're right. You make a good point. But how long did we know Trevor Bayliss was going to be leaving after the Ashes for? A long time. We could have had this appointment a bit closer to being made before it was.
Yeah,
See what I mean?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. So you think it could have been done probably the week after the Ashes?
Well, there's no reason they couldn't have at least been looking around a little bit
after the
earlier.
Ashes draw, I must say.
Yeah, the Ashes draw. Why not start
What you
interviewing straight
laughing
away?
at,
It's
Johnny?
a massive
No,
decision.
I love the positivity.
We drew with Australia,
We
didn't
did.
we? 2-2.
We did.
Yeah.
They've got the Ashes.
We
Still.
drew.
Well, yeah,
We drew.
They've got the Ashes.
I have
What
to
was
say,
it? Was it 2-2?
I'm with Martin Allen.
Was it
here.
2-2?
I think it was, Martin.
It was.
I think you're
Desmond
spot on.
2-2.
Desmond 2-2 in the Ashes, and Martin believes we're going to win them back down under.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Can you save money on your energy bills? Tony did, with help from aspokesmansaid.com. Getting people real savings.
I'm Tony from Northampton. My bills for gas and electricity had gone straight through the roof. I chose A Spokesman Said, and they saved me £2,800. It was so easy, I used them for my house and contents insurance too.
For help saving money on your energy bills, go to aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
Coming up on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, we're going to be joined by Nick Schupanek, who's a sports writer covering Brighton and the NFL. We're going to be finding out about that exciting young striker, Aaron Connolly. Just how good is he? And we also had the Raiders beating the Bears in the first NFL game at that Spurs stadium. We'll be finding out how that went, and we'll be catching up with Joe Allen, former Newcastle striker, to get a positive take on what was a terrible day for Manchester United. Possibly a bit of Spurs as well, but first of all, it's time for the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4, the Prime Minister's urging an American diplomat's wife to return to the UK and speak to police about her involvement in a fatal crash. 19-year-old Harry Dunn died in a head-on collision with a car being driven by Anne Sakoulas in Northamptonshire in August. The local police and crime commissioner, Stephen Mould, made this appeal.
Is this the most appropriate use of kind of immunity? You've got a family here that's grieving for a truly, truly tragic situation. Come back, help Northamptonshire police, finish the investigation into collision, because that's actually what we need to make sure that they can get justice for Harry.
135 climate change protesters have been arrested as they begin a 2-week shutdown of central London. Extinction Rebellion wants the government to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025 instead of 2050. Diana's demonstrating on Lambeth Bridge.
Unless we do something dramatic and make a lot of trouble, this terrible climate change disaster is going to continue happening. We need to raise the profile. We need government to listen. So I decided I've got nothing to lose.
A baby who was stabbed in Newcastle last week has died in hospital. The 3-week-old boy was injured at a house in Wallsend in an attack which also left his mother seriously hurt. A man was charged at the time with 2 counts of attempted murder. Police in Hong Kong have fired tear gas again as pro-democracy protests continue in the former British colony. Hundreds of people have gathered on the streets angry about a new law banning demonstrators from wearing masks. Aston Villa say they're disgusted and appalled by what looks like a racist video of some of their fans. In a clip online, they appear to be singing chants about 2 of their players. And Chris Silverwood says he's thrilled and honoured to be the new head coach of the England cricket team, replacing Trevor Bayliss. That's the latest. I'm Anna Russell.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Man United are back.
They've cocked it up.
Man United are back.
They've cocked it up.
Nice little double there just to strike the point home. It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, and it all does seem to be going wrong at Manchester United. Martin Allen, I was talking to a couple of my United supporting mates yesterday, expecting them to be sticking the boot in on Ollie, expecting them to be going #Ollie out, he's got to go. What they said was Ollie's fine. And they went one further than that. They said he needs at least 3 years. They said whoever you bring in here now is going to struggle. So we have to show patience and we have to back him. Do you subscribe to that idea?
Yeah, I do 100%, Johnny. I'm glad, Johnny. You seem to have turned over a leaf.
Oh, I don't agree with them.
Because every day we have a conversation. Pep Guardiola's lost again. Is he up for the chop? Is he under pressure? Every day it's a different manager when they lose a game. And for Ollie, the fact that when they played Everton, I think it was last year, they lost 4-0. And of the 18 players, 15 of them are still there. And I think he said after the game, the players have kind of given up. They need to do more. Well, nearly all those players are still there, minus Lukaku, who is, whether you like it or not, a top quality centre forward. So, who's not been replaced? So he is managing, and he's stood in that technical area with a group of players who is publicly slated and said they're not up to it. And now he's got the same lot to work with. It must be such a tough job for him. I've been there. I've been in that technical area, and I've looked out there with only 5,000 people. Oh, my God, pass me the Nurofen.
If we're going to be generous, though, and say that the Manchester United manager needs years to build a squad and needs time to construct a project, and we subscribe to that idea, you could still argue that Ollie might not necessarily be the right man. If you were going to give a manager that time, would it not make sense to do that with a Pochettino, say, or with a Massimiliano Allegri?
I could see exactly where you're coming from, and I'm afraid I would have to agree with you. As much as I would always want to stick up for the manager and back the manager, the fact he was given the job before the end of last season, they should have waited until the summer. He didn't do very well at Cardiff City. He'd done well at Mulder, but I don't think, and I stand to be corrected from you guys, I don't think he was brilliant at Mulder either. I think he'd done well there. So for him to get a job because he used to play for Man United and he was a popular, nice character with his baby face and that lovely little grin that he's got, that's not really what you get the job for. And coming in after Mourinho was so negative towards his players and had turned on the players, and the players had turned on him, the players had given up basically trying for Mourinho. He came in at the perfect time with his nice smile and says, come on then boys, let's go out and play some great football. Pogba came back into the team and he was brilliant with his assists and his goals, and it's helped him get the job.
It has indeed. We had former United striker Dan Nardiello on Love Sport Breakfast this morning, and Patrick Christie's asked him where he thought United would finish this season and whether even relegation was a possibility.
Top six, I can't see that happening at all. I think the best United can really hope for this year is, a top 10 finish. But relegation, I think no. I think once they have that little, like I say, that little bit of extra quality back, they will start creating a bit more. But they're miles off the top six.
Top half finish at best. That is a seriously, seriously damning indictment of one of the biggest football clubs in the world. We're going to continue our coverage of Manchester United throughout the show. But for now, let's talk Tottenham. We're joined on the line by Nick Shepanik, who's a sports writer covering Brighton and the NFL. Good afternoon, Nick. Thanks for joining us. I gather you were at the game, Brighton versus Tottenham. Is the Seagulls' performance being underappreciated? Were Brighton that good, or were Spurs just very, very dodgy?
Well, it always takes two teams to make a game, doesn't it? And for one team to play well, the other usually has to be a little bit below par, and Spurs were. I mean, you don't know what would have happened if Lloris had punched that ball or flicked it over the bar. Obviously a goal in the first 3 minutes gives a team a fantastic lift, and the nature of the injury that Lloris had suffered afterwards, has allegedly affected them, as Pochettino says, and you can completely understand that. So, all the circumstances of the first goal worked in Brighton's favour and against Tottenham. Although you have to say that Chelsea game apart, I think a win's been coming for Brighton. They've been playing well without getting the results. I mean, people who saw them play Newcastle, got an early look at Aaron Connolly when he had his chip cleared off the line, and saw that they're dominating games and having a lot of possession. And it turns out that people thought it might be a bad time to play Spurs for Brighton, but it turned out to be a bad time to play Brighton for Spurs.
And what about Connolly? A first Premier League start for him, 2 goals, and not just the goals, a lively performance all round. How high are your hopes for him?
Well, there's been quite a lot of buzz about him for quite a long time. Those who take notice of the junior teams, he scored goals at every level. He was Premier League 2 Player of the Season last year, ahead of a lot of players from what you might call the bigger clubs. Scored a lot of goals and has made a couple of substitute appearances and been close to a goal. So I think Potter obviously decided it was the right time, and he was rewarded with that. I mean, I think there's people are going to look at his sort of build and his aggressive running and sort of compare him to someone like Wayne Rooney. But he's obviously it's early days. But I think there were pretty high hopes, and I think what a lot of people liked was that he was offered the chance to go out on loan, like a lot of the under-23s, but said no, he wanted to stay and fight for a first-team place, and he's certainly done that pretty effectively.
Apart from the Lloris injury, obviously, what was so bad about Tottenham? What enabled Brighton to capitalise?
Well, it doesn't help when you haven't got a specialist right back. I think Sissoko tried hard, but was a real fish out of water in that position. But you just saw a lack of cohesion, a lack of confidence in the Tottenham team. They looked obviously to their top players, but Kane was. I mean, you'd be exaggerating to say he was in Lewis Dunk's pocket, but he didn't get much service. Eriksen, we've seen him dominate games, but he seemed to be completely out of sorts. And you always say that if you've got 7 players playing, to their top form, then you'll do well. But it was very hard to see more than about 3 or 4 players playing at the top of their game, if that. And when everyone has a collective off day, it's very hard. Against a team that's on the front foot to put anything together. In fact, it only seemed to be when Mora came on the second half that they posed any sort of a threat at the other end at all.
And I listened to the game on the radio on the way to watching West Ham, and they were absolutely slaughtering Eric Dyer. Was he Dyer? What are you laughing at, Johnny?
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? His career seemed to peak, didn't it, at the World Cup? And everything he seemed to do was going well for him, and he just seems to have had a real falling off. I think a guy like him needs to be sort of confident about his place and be playing regularly, and to get into the rhythm of games. And I think that hasn't really happened for him. And when somebody said he showed all the sort of the grace of a rusty combine harvester, I think, in one of the papers, and he just didn't seem to be sort of clicking. He didn't seem to have that that sort of ease of movement. It just didn't seem to be happening for him on any level at all. And and Ndombele was the guy taken off at half time. From those 2 holding midfield players, but could have been Dyer as well. Doesn't help to have a name where you can conjure with it. I think if he'd thought about it, he might have taken both of them off, but it's a question of what you have on the bench to put on instead, isn't it?
Nick, I thought it was a really good point you made. You started out with the fact that Sissoko is playing right back, and they haven't really got a replacement for Kieran Trippier. How can a club as big as Tottenham not replace who is a good fullback? He didn't have a great year after the World Cup, we all know. But how can you have an attacking midfield player, a pacey, rangy midfield player playing at right back when you've just been in the Champions League final and not strengthened?
Well, there's an argument, isn't there, that if you're playing if you're playing wing backs with a back three, then you can play a midfield player, in a wide position, and they can do sort of service as a wing back. But if you're playing an actual orthodox right back, you do need a specialist. Obviously, Aurier would have been the guy to play if he hadn't been suspended. But I agree with you. If you're leaving yourself down to one right back, then you're going to be caught out at some point. You become vulnerable to injuries or suspensions. I think I'm right in saying that Dyer made his debut for Tottenham, didn't he? In the game,
yeah, he has played right back as well.
Right back.
Yeah, he has.
But I think if you feel that you need him in a deep midfield squad, then that probably takes precedence. No, I agree with you. I think you look at Premier League squads, and you'd have to think that you'd have two players for every position, and okay, maybe one of them would be your second choice right back, maybe could fit in somewhere else. But as you say, to have only one player, and when you've got someone like Trippier, who's a big game player, he's proved that, then to leave yourself with just Aurier does look like a bit of dereliction of duty from whoever's in charge of the
recruitment,
the squad building there. Yeah. I think you'll find that Pochettino sort of distanced himself from that when he started referring to himself very pointedly as coach, not manager.
Nick, one thing on the Pochettino front in particular that you get to see if you're at the game is the demeanour of the manager. You see his body language, his behaviour in the technical area. How did he seem? Was he frustrated? Was he calm? What was going on?
He looked very badly affected by the injury, I must say. Obviously when Lloris was taken away, he was taken past him. But I think the medics were talking to Pochettino, explaining what the injury was quite early on, and his body language looked very sort of shocked by that. And you don't know how much something like that takes out of a manager. When you've got your players are not just automata. They're friends on some level, or they're people you work with, and to see someone like that suffer a bad injury would have affected him. Right? You'd have to say that. But I think he's a confident guy. I mean, I think he's got quite a lot of hinterland, and his staff, are very loyal. They've been with him a long time. So I don't think I wasn't struck by him, sort of having his head bowed or anything. I think he's a guy who'll take it in his stride. And when he says, he's looking forward to the international break to take stock, I mean, that's not just hiding. I think that's something he will do. He's always been very analytical of his players. Certainly was when he was at Southampton before he went to Tottenham. And I think he'll be looking at these 2 weeks to think, right, what do we do next? What do I do? I certainly didn't get the impression that that he was ready to throw the towel in.
Just lastly, Nick, moving to a different sport, but not totally unconnected to Spurs, of course. I know you cover the NFL a lot as well, and yesterday we had a bit of a landmark moment for NFL in the UK for Spurs. The first NFL regular season game at their new stadium, of course. It sounded like a pretty dramatic one. I'm no American football expert, but anything with a comeback from 17 points behind, only for the other team to end up winning it as the Raiders did, sounds like a good game. It was a good start for the sport and their association with Spurs' new stadium, wasn't it?
Very good on every level. I mean, what you don't want in the first game at a new venue is a blowout or a game that doesn't hit the heights. But as you say, that had all the drama you wanted. And I've spoken to a lot of people, who were there for the first time at that ground, or for their first time at an NFL game, and other people who've been to Wembley as well. And they all said the same, that the atmosphere was tremendous compared to Wembley, where you are a little bit distant from the players. It felt more like an NFL game at an NFL stadium. You felt like you were in Baltimore or Chicago or Seattle or somewhere. Great noise. Fewer, I was going to say tourists, but fewer of the sort of extended NFL family, probably more diehard Bears and Raiders fans, perhaps more Americans as a percentage of the crowd than there are at the Wembley games, where you've got an extra 20,000 seats, and there, you tend to see people wearing replica shirts of all 32 teams. That was much less in evidence. I think it was much more of a hardcore crowd, probably more appreciative, more knowledgeable, and I think one of the best atmospheres there's been at any of the games in London so far. I think it's a great stadium anyway, and having the dedicated NFL facilities makes it feel, probably closer to a genuine NFL experience than we've had at Wembley.
Wonderful to hear. It sounds like a bright future for them in one sport, if not the football. Nick, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Nick Shepanik there, who is a sports writer covering Brighton and the NFL. Coming up, more of the fallout from Tottenham. Something has to change.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
I'm Leslie from North Essex. I couldn't believe that after 5 minutes I'd saved over £900 on my energy bills. When my car insurance was then due for renewal, I went back to a spokesman said and reduced my premium by over £500. I thought that my home insurance was expensive. When I shopped around on a spokesman said, I saved a staggering £1,100. I've saved £2,500. I cannot believe it was that easy.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Believe me, he who laughs last thinks slowest. Ha ha ha, see, that was a laugh because I'm clever enough.
This is Love Sport.
Roy Hodgson spent £6 million this summer with Crystal Palace. He spent £9.5 million the summer before. And they are 6th in the Premier League. It's quite extraordinary. Martin, you were there to see them beat West Ham. Did they impress you?
Johnny, just going back, and he sold a player for 50 million.
He did.
So
net profit
of,
oh, don't make me do that, like 35 odd.
35 million. And bought in. What a good player he was on Saturday, Gary Cahill.
On a free, and this is a recurring theme of Hodgson's reign at Palace. The keeper, Gita, was free. The Palace fans love him. They say he's one of the most underrated. Cahill, as you say.
He made some good saves Saturday, by the way. How do you actually say his name?
Gator, I think.
Gator, like an alligator?
Gator.
Gator, we'll call him.
We'll call him Gator. James McCarthy, 3 million. Jordan Ayew, who has magically looked good this season, despite, to my mind, not being a particularly dangerous centre-forward, 2.5 million. Victor Camarasa, OK, he's on loan and he's going to cost, 13 million. But so many free agents. Bakary Sacco on a free. Pape Souaré on a free. Max Meyer on a free. He has built a team capable of competing in the top half of that Premier League table on a real shoestring budget, and it's not the first time. He did a good job with West Brom, a fantastic job with Fulham, and yet we are still getting a significant number of Crystal Palace fans calling for his head, and I genuinely cannot understand it.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding you. I used to anchor the Crystal Palace fan show here on Love Sport Radio, and the guys were split. Some of them were keen on Roy, but there are lots who say, and I spoke to Chris Hambling of Back of the Nest on one of our weekend shows a couple of weeks ago, saying, yeah, fine, the results are good, but the football's not pretty, it's not exciting to watch. We need a change. You think, be careful what you wish for. You sold your best defender. You're going to lose Wilfried Zaha at some point. Crystal Palace have in the bottom 7 squads in terms of man-for-man quality for me in the Premier League. Roy Hodgson has got them 6th. How can you not be happy with that?
Johnny, I was coming home last week from the Emirates after watching them play Notts Forest. And the little Brazilian 18-year-old called Martinelli had scored, right at the beginning of the game, a fantastic header. It was a brilliant ball from Chambers on the volley from the outside wide part of the 6-yard box, back across the 6-yard box. And he came between two centre-halves and powered it in with his head. He's only about 5'8", like Wayne Rooney's size, and headed it in the top corner. It was a brilliant goal. And on the way home, there were some Arsenal fans on the train sitting next to me. And I said to one of the fellas, what a good player that Martinelli is. You must be excited about having him in Arsenal for your future. He went, yeah, but his goal was lucky. And I went, pardon? He said it was a lucky goal that he scored. I said, oh, really? What, that header? He said, yeah. He said, I thought that was a lucky goal. And I just said, oh, yeah, OK, thanks a lot. I jumped off the tube train to get my train home. And I just walked along shaking my head. And I won't name names, but today I met a Newcastle fan. Believe it or not, a Newcastle fan today. And I said to him, what a great result that was yesterday. You must be chuffed to bits. I bet you were happy with Steve Bruce today, ain't you? Apart from all that knocking of Steve Bruce. You must be happy. And he went, yeah. But we didn't play well. I went, you what? Don't you think, Johnny, supporters can be so negative over their teams? I mean, who could say you didn't play well yesterday? What a result. They hit the crossbar as well yesterday, didn't he?
They did. And
Maguire had one good chance, but he headed it wide. But apart from that, after losing 5-0 to Leicester, and then to come back out and put that sort of performance on, it was superb. But I think fans are just like that, Johnny.
Well, they are, but there's a little bit of subtlety there, isn't there? Because you can win a game without playing well. Do you think fans are too fixated on the quality of football, on the quality of the entertainment on show, rather than just the results? Because if you were a fan fixated purely with the league table, you would be delighted with the job that Roy Hodgson is doing. And actually, you'd be satisfied with the job that Steve Bruce is doing at Newcastle as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Roy Hodgson's done unbelievable. The decision in the summer, and I'm not sure who actually made the decision. I'm sure it was probably taken above Steve Bruce, with Steve Parish making that decision, that Zaha is staying. That was a big day for me, for Crystal Palace. He didn't play great at West Ham on Saturday, but he is a threat, and he has got something about him, and he can and he will win them games. But they're honest, they're hard-working, they're committed to the club, they're passionate for the shirt. The supporters at Crystal Palace, from what I could see on Saturday, they sung non-stop to back their team and support their players. And, it goes such a long way when you've got a positive set of supporters behind you, rather than moaning and groaning and draining confidence. And it's like it at the Emirates at the moment. They're absolutely buzzing for Arsenal, with those young boys coming in, taking it forward, and it really lifts the place, and you can really tell the difference.
Well, let's hear from Wilfried Zaha on why Palace are doing so well.
Great team ethic, really. Like we're all really good mates, and obviously we work hard for each other. And the win against West Ham just shows how much character the team has. Obviously, every game ain't going to be as smooth as you want it to be, but sometimes you got to dig deep.
Well, Martin, it's exactly what you were saying. It's that question of atmosphere, of enjoying your football, enjoying each other's company as well. Do you think that idea of camaraderie and team spirit is underestimated in the modern game?
Of course it is. We're seeing it now, aren't we, with Manchester United, with the goalkeeper saying that he wants to go and play in Spain. Go then. With Pogba saying he wants to go and play for whoever. Go then. We don't want you here. We don't want your Jamojis all over. What are they called?
Emojis.
Emojis all over the place. And Instagraph and all that. Concentrate on playing football, mate. You might have won a World Cup, well done. But that competition is only in together for what, six weeks, is it? In that, this is a 10-month competition in the toughest league in the world, the Premier League. This is really where it happens. Get real, get your head down. Zaha on Saturday run himself into the ground out on the right wing. Run himself into the ground. He didn't play great, but the effort, commitment, the unity, it's the same with Leicester at the moment. It's the same with Arsenal at the moment. That's why they've got the, what's the rat? Ozil. That's why he's not playing.
Should you just say, what's the rat?
The rat. He sniffs around. They don't want him around, do they? He hasn't been in the squad for the last 3 games. Multi-talented, but he won't run back and help the team and play for the team. And what Wilf is just talking about is everybody is totally 100% committed to Crystal Palace in that squad. And as you say, it goes a long way.
And when supporters are concerned with the style of football more than the results, like at Newcastle, like at Palace, should they be looking at the current occupants of the relegation zone for a bit of a cautionary tale? Norwich City came up playing wonderful football. They beat Man City. They played an open game in getting beaten by Liverpool as well. Fine. They're exciting. Teemu Pukki scoring goals. Crimea River, you are second bottom in the table with 6 points, 1 win and 4 losses in your last 5 games. It's pretty fine, but Aston Villa scored 5 past you at the weekend. Similar, Everton, exciting players, creative talents.
Johnny, Norwich City have got 9 first-team players out.
They have.
Injured.
They have.
So that does go a significant way towards it. When you're talking about playing styles, don't talk to me about Newcastle United, because under Rafa Benitez, they played with 1 up front and sometimes none up front and 11 parked back behind the ball at times against Man City from the first minute. There was 11 players in their own half defending their goal, just hoping for a 0-0 draw from the first minute at St James's. Now, I think he got away with it once and nicked a point or won a game against them. But on the whole, that was the most negative parking the bus. He parked the train, the bus and a tank to try and stop the opposition getting in. And at times it was successful, but his methodical style of play weren't always great on the eye. Don't anyone kid themselves on that one.
So do you think it's more than an element of a cult of personality about these managers? Rafa Benitez is fashionable and likeable and Spanish, therefore he can park the bus and everyone's still excited by him. Steve Bruce is, with respect to Steve Bruce, and so the Newcastle fans aren't particularly excited by him. Similarly with Roy Hodgson, we look at these nice, straightforward English blokes, and in some cases perhaps they lack the glamour of a Rafa Benitez.
Yeah, maybe. But Roy Hodgson's been very successful, even in Sweden. He's been successful all over Europe, been successful everywhere he's been. A very, very clever football manager, a very good coach, done a great job at West Brom. He's done a good job everywhere he's been. I think he was probably sacked too early up at Liverpool, where he would have gone on to do a good job and the players weren't that keen on him. But it would have taken time for that to evolve, and no doubt he would have been successful. Crystal Palace, by keeping Zaha, will stay in the Premier League, and they will be challenging right at the top for the duration.
Roy Hodgson's only real howler in his career, I think, was selling Roberto Carlos, a young Roberto Carlos, on grounds that he wasn't going to be good enough. We're going to be speaking to...
Did he?
Yeah.
Where was that at?
Inter Milan to Real Madrid. We're going to be speaking to former Newcastle striker Joe Allen in just a moment, and we'll be getting into Seb Coe, who's very popular at the moment. Seb Coe's claims that the Athletics World Championships were the best ever. Didn't seem like that from where I was sitting, what with the empty stands and the doping scandal, but there we go.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive, and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you, and making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
This is Love Sport.
That is Going Home by Mark Knopfler. It's off the album Local Hero, and it's the song played before every home game at St James's Park. Ironic, really, when it's Manchester United who are in dire straits. They had a local hero of their own yesterday in 19-year-old match winner Matty Longstaff. Let's hear what he had to say after beating Manchester United on his Premier League debut.
Bit of note, to be honest. Last night you go to bed dreaming of this, and you never think it's really going to happen, so
for it to happen, I'm over the moon. I'm a bit speechless.
We can hear from his manager, Steve Bruce, as well, talking about the youngster.
He trains every day with a big beam and smile on his face. He's refreshing, wants to play, a great kid, and I'm delighted. You know, it's typical of him. The first thing he said to me coming off is thank you.
We're very fortunate to have former Newcastle striker Joe Allen on the line, but before we speak to Joe, let's remind ourselves of what he had to say about Brucey after his appointment back in the summer.
Going from Rafa to Bruce is like going from Chateaubriand in a top Newcastle restaurant to a proper ranked doner kebab in Sunderland.
Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you for joining us. Chateaubriand to a doner kebab. Do you still agree?
Right, a rank doner kebab in Sunderland. Good afternoon, you bonny lads. I just say the hairs on the back of my neck were standing off when Local Hero come on there. That's fantastic. But hey, what can I say? Steve Bruce, I love Brucey. It only took him 23 games to beat Man United, and it took a Local Hero to do it. But I like Bruce. He's a great lad. But we have gone. I just listened to what Marty said before. Good afternoon, Marty. Love you, man. But I'm just going to say, we're playing the Rafa way. Rafa, world-class manager. What's the difference between Rafa and Bruce, you asked? Rafa's won things. Brucey is a great lad, but Rafa knew what he had as in his player's ability. He knew the strengths and the weaknesses. And I want Brucey to do well, and he's great. But I've witnessed 13 years of Mike Ashley. We've never won out for 50 years, man. That hurts us to the heart. These fans deserve success, don't you think?
They do. They've got that great passion, Joe. Same passion that you talked with and you play with. That, Joe, yesterday, that must have excited all the fans. All the fans.
This is the thing, Mark, right? I mean, we're getting battered last week, 5-0 Leicester. All I can hear is the Newcastle fans singing their hearts out, right? And yesterday was a great 3 points. Great performances for the boys we're going to talk about in a minute, right? But a lad that's scored his debut. Don't get fooled by the framework, right? There's a battle on our hands. It's like eating a bowl of soup with a fork. We're swimming backwards up Niagara Falls. It's going to be hard. But hey, it's only Chelsea next after the international break. And when you see the Man City's losing to Wolves 2-0 at home, Villa scoring 5 at Norwich, who previously beat Man City, it just shows in our English Premier League that it's like, God, it's it's the difference between a kettle and a shark. I mean, we are in a better place than we were this time yesterday, but the margins of going down and staying up are thinner than a fly's eyelash. You know?
Joe, something I loved at the game, particularly with the winner, was that when Matty Longstaff was running over to the Gallagher end to celebrate, Andy Carroll, of course, another local lad, didn't jump on him. He didn't go for the bundle. He pointed at him to give Matty his moment.
In the spotlight.
And his adoration, adulation from the fans. And we had, of course, the two Longstaffs and Carroll all celebrating with the local Newcastle faithful. How important is it for this club and for football more broadly that you have local lads playing for local teams who understand what it means to those supporters?
It's a great point. I was once in a Newcastle United team as a 17, 18-year-old. Martin played, made debuts then. I was in a team that had 7 lads that were born in the Newcastle area, Newcastle Gators. Now, we've got Dummett injured, so we'll get him fit. We'll get Andy Carroll fit. We've got the 2 Longstaffs. We'll only need another 7. We'll be all right. It'll be great, wouldn't it? And I've just got to say about the 2 boys, Matty and Sean. I mean, hey, the father's David, right? Or Lobby as I know him, right? He's got 150,000 caps for Great Britain on the ice hockey team. He's an absolute legend in the game. His uncle's Alan Thompson, Martin will know.
Yeah.
Former Newcastle,
Midfield player.
Celtic, Villa, midfield, Leeds, England international. He could open a tin of beans with his left foot, Mart.
Yeah.
So the pedigree's there. But they come from good stock. And I'm sure the mother, right, played a massive, significant part, as our mothers did, especially mine for me, and I know Martin's, as they're both not only 2 very talented, down-to-earth boys, but they've been brought up to be 2 fine young gentlemen. And that's a testament to the parents and the families. So that's so refreshing for me.
Hey, Joe, at the end of the game, when the cameras panned over to the Longstaff family, there was a row in the Allen Hale household between my sister's 4 sons if that guy there was Mike Ashley or Longstaff's dad, because they looked so similar. Do you know those two? Yeah,
I saw it. It was definitely not Mike Ashley.
No, I know. But two of them were saying it was, and two of them it wasn't. It was going backwards and forwards. They're similar, aren't
I
they?
tell you honestly, and about Ashley as well. I mean, I want the 3 points against Man United, right? I mean, we played a very underwhelming side under their manager. You're talking about Solskjaer. Just heard the last 2 minutes. I mean, I'm not being funny, but Solskjaer, Marty, you're right. Cardiff failure, the Swede, whatever team, Norwegian. He couldn't manage the Spice Girls, and them sold out after 30 minutes. Honestly, I support the team, not the regime, and it's the fans' right to go to the games. And I can't be disrespectful for the fans if they want their wishes to go. It's brilliant, but at the takeover at the club, it's like Martin Allen staying on his feet when tackling. You know, it's like me knocking back one of the Kardashians. It's never going to happen.
Joe, incisive analysis as always. You've told us in the past that you're not that optimistic about Newcastle's hopes of staying up, but that's a big 3 points against a big side. Are you feeling any better about the prospect?
For sure. Today is a good day. It's a great day to be alive. But, you know, like that's 3 points. We've had 2 wins, a home win and a away game. We've played Tottenham and Man United, probably not at their best. We've picked up the 6 points, which is fantastic. But you have a look, we've got the worst goals leakage in the league apart from Watford. And it could come down, like I'm saying, it's as tight as a fly's eyelash because it could go on. The goal difference this year to who gets relegated. We're out the zone at the minute, and we're going into play Chelsea, right at the lovely Stamford Bridge. And I was thinking about the 3 songs before yesterday that Newcastle United would have been. And you'll get these, Marty Allen will get them out. It would have been like 1 Against All Odds. That would have been, who sang that again?
Oh, good
Don't
question.
ask me, Joe.
Phil Collins, and Steve Bruce, right? Against All Odds. Then it would have been What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted? What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted? Jimmy Ruffin and the Newcastle fans after we've got beat. But then now, after yesterday, that win, it's titanium. And Johnny will get this because he's young. David Guetta. Let's be like Mike Ashley. Let's have the skin of a rhino. #impregnable.
#impregnable is quite something.
Great word, eh?
Great word. Well, talking of impregnable sides, Joe, Chelsea have looked very, very good going forward, but would wish they had a bit more of the rhino skin about them at the back. I know you played for them as well. They've got Newcastle next. How are the Blues looking?
Well, they're looking good because the youth that they've got, and I love Frank Lampard. I loved him as a player. Whether he's getting the job too early, I'd say yes. You know, it's very, very early for him to get the job, but he's in the position at the minute. But the lovely thing is the lads that are playing, that are getting back to fitness now, Hudson-Odoi, and Tommy is doing magnificent. I mean, Ross Barkley got left out of the starting lineup yesterday, but again, all these guys are in England squad, you know, and it's good for Chelsea Football Club to have the English players playing in the England squad because that makes our chance of England being a better team instead of the four. I think, the transfer ban that they've had, I think it could have been a good thing, but they're not going to be Jose Mourinho's winning sides for years and years overnight. It's going to take a little bit time, but I did find it a little bit strange that they did give away Luis for, I thought, at £8 million. He was a bit of a snip to get the Arsenal, and he goes and scores the winner against Bournemouth yesterday. And that's probably worth that £8 million.
You're probably right, Joe. Always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for
Take
your
care,
time.
Joe.
Thank you so much. God night, God bless, and I love you. Bye-bye.
Oh, we got a bit of titanium just for you. David Guetta, seeing you on your way out. Joe Allen there, former Newcastle striker. Sensational work from Guy Watts. Mention Ross Barkley there, Martin, and I just want to get your take on him. For me, he's not good enough. For me, he is the most frustrating player I have ever seen play for England, bar none, because there is the fundamentals of a genuinely superb footballer in there with a very, very slow footballing brain. And in the last few weeks, beyond the performances on the pitch, we've seen footage of him looking rather worse for wear in taxis, getting arguments with taxi drivers after dropping chips and refusing to pay the cleaning fee, supposedly, and so on and so forth. Do you think he's wasting an opportunity here? We're seeing real youngsters given an opportunity by Frank Lampard. We're seeing Gareth Southgate put a lot of faith in Ross Barkley, and he doesn't seem to be capitalising.
Well, he played well last week, Johnny, against Brighton. Oh, he was superb. Superb. What did he do in a taxi? Drop some chips?
The allegation was that he was in a taxi, perhaps having enjoyed himself on a night out, and he dropped his chips inside the taxi. And I've obviously never misbehaved in a taxi after a night out, but I'm reliably informed that if you drop your chips, you have to pay for the cleaning. So the taxi driver, presumably knowing it's Ross Barkley, goes, right, that'll be 50 quid, please.
Yeah.
Ross allegedly refuses to pay, and the police end up being called.
Yeah. Was he worse for wear? Because I didn't see that part of it.
The suggestion is that he was worse for wear, and he didn't deny that.
No, I didn't see that part of it. I saw him being walked by two policemen over to the cash till to get some cash out to go and pay the taxi driver. And when he was walking across the road, he wasn't slobbering all over the place and abusing anybody. I think a little bit more has been made out of that than actually did occur. Spilling chips in a taxi and then probably said, clear it up and pay for it. He's probably gone, stick it, mate. I ain't doing that. I'll give you a tenner for it, but I ain't going to give you X, Y, Z. I can't see it as a massive issue, to be honest. And when he played last week, he was absolutely superb against Brighton. And he was allowed to go back to Liverpool and go out. It wasn't, he's with his mates. He wasn't any fighting or hitting anybody or throwing bottles or doing anything horribly wrong. Chips in a taxi, steady tiger, that ain't too bad.
Steady tiger, that is the message. Well, we're talking athletics next. Lord Coe is claiming it's the best world championship ever. Somehow, I doubt many of us are going to agree with him.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A spokesman said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
I gave Kim Jong-un the upper hand, but only a tiny one.
Love Sport.
We're talking athletics here on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Now, it's been a busy fortnight. It's been an eventful fortnight. We've had a World Championships and within it, some brilliant British performances. Dina Asher-Smith winning gold in the women's 200 metres. Katarina Johnson-Thompson winning gold in the heptathlon. But all this in an empty stadium in Qatar where the marathon had to start at midnight because it's so hot. And, of course, amidst a ban for Alberto Salazar, the former coach of Sir Mo Farah, 4-year ban from athletics for doping violations. Amid all of that controversy, we've had Lord Coe, the president of the IAAF, say, listen, This is the best world championship of all time. Well, what are your metrics, Seb? How are we measuring this? Is it automatically a better world championship if 40% of your marathon runners drop out because it's so hot? No, it's fine. The medical facilities are top of the range. There's just this bizarre refusal to accept the realities of the situation. If he held his hands up and said, this hasn't been perfect, it's not been a perfect venue, but what we're trying to do is broaden the horizons of this sport. We're trying to include new people in it, and we can't always hold it in Europe. Yeah, fair enough, Seb. Really good point. But just shamefacedly lying and claiming that everything is sunshine and roses, bore off.
What's that saying? If you're in a hole, keep digging. Or stop digging, I think.
Get to Australia eventually.
Well, he's rather interpreted it slightly differently. Yeah, I agree with most of what you say there, Johnny. I think you summed it up quite nicely. And one of the things that caught the eye over the weekend, another classic example of athletics being both kind of brilliant and spectacular with athletes doing incredible things, but also, bringing the sport into a little bit of disrepute following on from the Salazar ban. Of course, how anyone can describe an athletics world championships as the best ever when literally the most high-profile coach has his accreditation stripped and he is banished from the championships on about the third day, as happened with Salazar, is quite beyond me, especially when it comes from the president of the world's governing body. But the thing over the weekend that got people talking a lot was one of his clients, one of his athletes, Sifar Hassan, the Dutch long-distance runner. She followed up the 10,000-metre gold medal she won at the start of the championships with a 1,500-metre gold medal. And afterwards, she gave an interview to the BBC where she gave her an impassioned defence of herself. Obviously, she'd come in for a lot of scrutiny in light of the ban given out to Alberto Salazar. This was what she said afterwards.
I was just so angry and I couldn't talk to anyone. I just ran all out and I just wanted people so that hard work can beat everything, can be better than everything.
Hard work beats everything, she says. And I want to play you Michael Johnson, of course, the athletics legend who works as a pundit for the BBC, his response, because I thought it was really interesting. I thought it summed it up quite nicely, especially given the fact that some of his BBC colleagues have missed the mark slightly, shall we say, when it's come to their analysis of the Alberto Salazar stuff over the last week or so. This is what Michael Johnson said in response to that.
I understand her anger. And I get that, but yes, that is a question that she's going to have to get prepared for. She made the decision to go to the Oregon Project. At the time that she went, Salazar was under investigation, and she has to realize, and any athlete in that organization has to realize that is going to be attached to them. They're going to have to answer these questions. If you are clean and you want to prove to them that you're clean, you're not going to get that done by being angry and going out and saying, I ran because I was angry and I want to prove to everyone I'm clean. You have to say, I understand why people are angry. I understand why people have these accusations against me, and then appeal to them that you're clean and that you support clean sport, and then go about your business. But showing that anger is not going to get you anywhere, and these athletes have to realize that.
Interesting words from Michael Johnson there. I think beyond just saying you understand, for me, you have to apologise. Even if you are clean, and even if you've done nothing wrong. If you go, as he said, and you choose to work with a coach who is under suspicion of doping, and he is then found guilty of doping, even if he genuinely wasn't breaking any rules with reference to his specific coaching of you, you have at the very least made a decision to get as close to the line as you can, reasonably, when we hear the stories about the use of asthma medication for people who don't have asthma, for thyroid medication for people who don't have a thyroid problem. And on top of that, you have at least shown willful ignorance for me. You have known that there are doubts. You've gone there anyway. And when you have been proven to have been not just working, but consorting with someone who is cheating, even if you are clean, I think you owe your competitors an apology.
Yeah, maybe, Johnny. What struck me from what you were talking about a minute ago is that guy, Sebastian Coe. What the hell is he thinking of? Where the hell did he get that it's been the best ever? He must have been paid serious damage to come out with a statement like that.
Well,
when you've got to have a running race in the middle of the night, and then was it 40% of the runners never even made it because it was too hot? He must be mad.
Martin, from start to finish, with the brief exceptions, and it happens that the good news bits in the main seem to be were British, with Dina Asher-Smith, with Katarina Johnson-Thompson, with Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price, okay, not British, but part of the Dina Asher-Smith story, if you like, with the 400-metre runner, the German chap, 400-metre hurdles runner, who won, who Ewan says is a great star, with the exception of those sort of people. The 100-metre champion in the men's, Christian Coleman, he shows the same sort of willful ignorance that Johnny just used to talk about Sifan Hassan, and actually applies to Seb Coe as well. He was another one who had 3 whereabouts failures in 12 months as the 100 metres fastest man in the world, and yet didn't seem too bothered about it, said that he was owed an apology by the anti-doping people. These people don't get it, and Seb Coe doesn't get it, Sifan Hassan doesn't get it, Christian Coleman doesn't get it. This is a sport riddled with people who are bringing controversy on an already dirty, damaged and tainted sport, causing it more pain and failing to actually recognise that and do anything to try and improve it. It's a sport in a crisis, and you've got the man in charge saying it's been the best World Championships ever. He's on another planet.
Good Lord.
The problem with it isn't just the athletes, and it's not just the body who don't seem to get it. The broadcasters in the main don't seem to get it either. We had Justin Gatlin, who has been twice banned for doping offences, coming second in the 100 metres. Well, he certainly was in the past. And then on the BBC, who I'm normally quick to defend, we had Paula Radcliffe discussing the Salazar story, effectively appearing to get pretty close to defending some of these practices.
That choosing to focus on the coach was essentially the wrong way to go about anti-doping.
Yeah, without disclosing that A, she is a Nike ambassador, so she is paid by them to be positive. Salazar's project was the Nike
that word positive,
Oregon. Very good. The Nike Oregon project has Nike in it. She's not going to come out swinging. And most of all, she is married to the coach of Sir Mo Farah, who was coached by Salazar from 6 years to 2011 to 2017. They elected to get her thoughts on it without disclosing any of that. From the top to the bottom, from the field to the microphone, it has been a shambles. And Lord Coe is saying it is the best ever nonsense.
And it does create a bit of a cloud, like the Wacky Racers. Do you remember the Wacky Racers, that cartoon in the afternoons when you were off school because you were poorly? It does create a major cloud over that Mo Farah, because he was with that guy, Salazar, being coached and trained with him at the Nike Oregon Centre for how many years, guys?
6 years.
6 years?
For 6 years, in which he was the dominant long-distance male athlete. And, you know, it may be coincidence, but the point is that it's not just people like us sitting here. Laura Muir, of course, one of the other medal hopes who didn't manage it in the end, but we know that her preparation was disrupted by injury. Absolutely, Martin. She said herself, there is a cloud over Sifan Hassan. Remember, what was different between her, this Dutch long-distance runner, and Mo Farah, for example, is that Sifan Hassan chose to go and work with Alberto Salazar when he was already under investigation, right? That is a very different thing to do. Alberto Salazar may have long been considered different and even controversial, but to be under actual investigation is a different thing, and that is not when Mo Farah started working with him. It was with Sifan Hassan. Jenny Simpson, the American 1500 metre runner who's been a world champion in the past, she said in no uncertain terms, no one in the sport is surprised by this. There has been a cloud and a shadow over what has been going on there for a long, long time. And for this to break, you know, at any time would have been terrible for athletics. During the World Championships, even worse. So to then try and kid anyone that it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant for Asher Smith, been brilliant for KJT and, you know, all the British fans who have gone out to watch or watched from home. But that's it. You know, it really is, I'm afraid.
And watching KJT, or Cat to her friends, wasn't it magnificent? And it was a brilliant performance from her to win that gold medal. I thought that was the highlight.
It was a highlight, absolutely. But it would have still been a highlight if it had been in a stadium which didn't need to be air-conditioned.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Lots to come on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're going to be continuing our reflection on the World Championships. And Alberto Salazar, whistleblower Cara Goucher, says that the Nike Oregon project should be shut down even with Salazar out of the picture. And it was the worst World Championships for Great Britain since 2005 in Helsinki. What went wrong? Talking of what went wrong, more United, more Spurs and more discussion. But first, it's the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5, Downing Street says the Foreign Secretary will speak to the US Secretary of State about an American diplomat's wife involved in a fatal crash in the UK. Anne Sakoulas left the country claiming diplomatic immunity after a head-on collision in Northamptonshire in August, which killed 19-year-old motorcyclist Harry Dunn. Legal expert Rad Seeger is helping Harry's family.
Diplomatic immunity does not exist to give people who break the laws in their host country a get-out-of-jail-free card. We've been searching high and low for a valid reason, because if there is a valid reason, we'll back away. I'm helping a family that are absolutely devastated and bereft.
Climate change protesters have shut down parts of central London as they try to get the government to take urgent action to protect the planet. 2 weeks of protests are being held in cities around the world by Extinction Rebellion. Felicity has taken her baby son Otto to a demo in Westminster.
I think the climate and ecological crisis are the biggest threat to human life on this planet and for his future too. And I think Extinction Rebellion are the only chance we have of making a difference and making politicians realise that nothing is more pressing.
Around 150 people have been arrested in London so far. A baby boy who was stabbed in Newcastle last week died in hospital. The 3-week-old was injured at a house in Wallsend on Wednesday in an attack which left his mother seriously hurt. Pizza Express has reportedly hired financial advisors ahead of talks with creditors over its huge debts. Bloomberg says they're looking at reorganising the current £665 million owed by the chain. Pizza Express hasn't commented. The Civil Aviation Authorities apologised to Thomas Cook customers struggling to claim refunds for cancelled holidays. A new website opened today but has been crashing. And a large grey-blue humpback whale's been spotted in the River Thames near London. It's been seen multiple times just east of the capital. That's the latest. I'm Anna Russell.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Man United might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, let him sign it, let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there, give him what he's done now since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Ollie's let the wheel, man, he's doing it, he's doing his thing. Man United are back.
Irrelevant, boring, old, yesterday's news, out the way, excuse me, we're coming in.
The best United can really hope for this year is, a top 10 finish.
They've cocked it up.
They have indeed. Good afternoon. It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and special guest Martin Allen. We're here till 7. Well, you heard from various people there. Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Daniel Nardiello, who we'll be hearing from in full in just a moment, and Eddie Hearn. Our top stories this afternoon. Manchester United just 2 points above the relegation zone after defeat to Newcastle. Where is it all going wrong? Even I am starting to admit that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer might need time. Tottenham as well have more defeats than any other Premier League club in all competitions after losing to Brighton, because they lost to Colchester as well, of course, in that League Cup. They lost on penalties, Martin Allen. I am not doing this again. And Liverpool have the biggest ever lead after 8 Premier League games. So is the title race over already? But first of all, we're off to Manchester, and Daniel Nardiello, former United striker, spoke to Patrick Christys and Richard Lee on Love Sport Breakfast, discussing what's going wrong at United. And they asked him, is this the United we've been used to seeing?
No, it's nowhere near. It's down to the bare bones in terms of injuries and the squad available. But really disappointing to watch, because you think even with some of the quality that there is on the pitch, they'd at least get a few shots on target, create a few chances. But it's dire to watch at the moment. No creativity, and to be honest, I'm not surprised at all that they haven't scored in the last 2 games.
Yeah, right. Look, do you reckon there's any chance whatsoever that Manchester United might actually go down?
No, I don't think so. I think there's too much quality, especially when the likes of Pogba and Martial and players like that come back. They will add that little extra bit of quality. Top 6, I can't see that happening at all. I think the best United can really hope for this year is, a top 10 finish. But relegation, I think no. I think once they have that little, like I say, that little bit of extra quality back, they will start creating a bit more. But they're miles off the top 6, top 4.
Yeah, but that was it, wasn't it? At the start of the season, we're going, maybe, just maybe, Solskjaer might end up getting them in top 4. Now they're not good enough for the top 4. He goes, it's all right, we might get in the top 6. They're not good enough for the top 6. Now it's a case of, they might squeeze into the top 10. How much longer does this go on for, do you reckon, before they just decide that actually Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's just surplus to requirements there?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it'll last much longer. I feel sorry for Ollie. I think what he's been lumped with, I think the club's more interested in profit than it is in running a football club. That's not his fault. The players have gone out that shouldn't have gone out because there was nothing coming in. So I think it's really difficult for him, and I think he will be made the scapegoat at some point, because I can't see, them, like I say, finishing top 4, top 6, and at some point he probably will go, and then it's just to start again. Who's going to come in? Are they going to give him the cash? The club's rancid at the moment. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it is indeed. Okay, so what needs to change? Because this is, I suppose, this is the conversation moving forward. People have been, you mentioned there, look, they aren't going to go down. Let's be honest. However, at the moment, there is something that isn't quite right. Is it a case of the players not being good enough? Is it a case of the culture? Now, you were part of Man United back in the day where the culture was incredible. Like, there must have been such a winning culture. I know I've spoke to the likes of Paul Rachubka and a couple of others who have explained what it was like back then and what Sir Alex Ferguson did in order to instill that culture within the squad. Is that the main issue right now?
Well, they've got. Solskjaer's got a lot of people in that were there when the culture was that way. So there's no reason why the culture should have changed so extreme as it has. I think the point is the lack of quality in the squad. The club is run to make profit for the owners. It's as simple as that. There's a lack of quality all over the pitch. There's not enough there. Of course, these players want to win. They want to play for the shirt, but they're not good enough. You look at that squad yesterday. They weren't good enough to beat Newcastle. Nobody was surprised that they didn't beat Newcastle. It's not good enough. So, yes, the culture needs to be there, but they also need the quality of players to help, bring that winning spirit back as well, and they just haven't got it at the moment.
So the problem is, though, that if Solskjaer does manage to kind of get United out of a bit of trouble and they finish at 9th or something like that, doesn't that just paper over the cracks? And it keeps Ed Woodward in a job. He knows which side his bread's buttered, so he doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't bother to try and make any wholesale changes. He just looks at it in the way that Mike Ashley looks at things, which is just like, oh well, we've stayed up, or we've hit this particular target. That's enough. So actually, is it? Should we maybe be doing something just to get Ed Woodward out, do you reckon?
Well, there are people trying to do that, and I think that movement could get bigger and bigger as time goes on. But ultimately, the Glazers don't care. I think if they start finishing 9th, 10th, 15th, the next few seasons, then they might start to put their ideas up. But it might be a bit too late because it's the Champions League revenue and all that comes along with that. Shirt sales with big name players on the back, that kind of thing. But I struggle to see where and how it's going to change because the problem's at the top, and it's got nothing to do with the management staff and the players. Ultimately, they need the money, they need the backing, and they're just not getting it.
I want to talk a bit about the recruitment. It was praised in the summer. They did obviously bring in the three lads that they brought in, who arguably have been three of the better players. Of course, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, and Daniel James, of course, some great goals. Obviously, so the recruitment's been okay. A lot of then is the players that were there, the existing players. Going into January, what is it they need? Is it as simple as they need to bring in a number 9, or is it more than that?
Well, funny enough, I had this conversation yesterday with a couple of United fans and watching the game. Now, the keeper and the back four are sound. They're fine. Once they're all fit, I think that's a solid, back four, and it's a decent keeper. Everything ahead of that is what the problem is. I think they need a centre midfielder, need number 10, they need a winger, and they need a number 9. I think you can't rely. I mean, Daniel James has been fantastic. He's been brilliant. He's been a breath of fresh air for the club. But you can't rely on him. He's a young kid. He shouldn't have all this reliance on him for a club like Manchester United. So he needs help from other players. I think, like I said, there's 5 or 6 players before you even consider competing for the top 4.
Yeah, just want to get your thoughts on this as well. Gary Neville had this to say about the Manchester United hierarchy.
They've cocked it up. They're responsible for this. Poor recruitment, poor selection of, managers and then going with them and then pulling off them. Van Gaal won the FA Cup, then they sacked him. Jose Mourinho, they sacked him after 2.5 years when they'd given him a contract 6 months before. So they've pulled off managers in terms of what would be the sort of thread of it, and they've gone for completely different styles of managers in Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho. They've now gone with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's taken the club in a completely different direction again. If you change direction as a board every 2 years and you invest 250 million quid along the way in each manager, you're going to have big problems. And Manchester United are basically now getting the pain that they deserve for poor decisions at board level.
Gary Neville there, clearly winning a bet with his friends. No, but on a serious note, though, that is the point, isn't it? That we've had this chopping and changing the whole time at United. Do you think that even if United just escape relegation, whatever, the best thing long term might just be to keep Solskjaer in there and just help him see through this supposed project that's happening?
Well, they've got to stick with the manager, that's for sure. Whether Ollie's the man for the job, whether he's got that tactical knowledge, like the Mourinho's, the Guardiolas, the Klopps have, I don't know, but that's yet to be proven. I think, but you've got to give him time to prove it. I think to sack him now would be a knee-jerk reaction based on the fact that the squad, they are where they are because of the squad they've got. But realistically, in answer to your question, if he doesn't do well this year, I think they'll get rid of him at the end of the season.
Former Manchester United striker Dan Nardiello there says the club is rancid and that the best they can hope for is a top half finish. Just 2 months ago and before the season started, there were high hopes of a top 4 place here. He was speaking to Richard Lee and Patrick Christie's on Love Sport Breakfast this morning, and Rich and Patrick are back from 6:30 tomorrow. Martin, that word rancid is a strong one. Not just rotten, but properly decomposing. Do you think that's fair?
What does rancid mean?
Rancid. So if meat goes rancid, it's kind of so off that if you ate it, you'd be ill for a month.
Rotten must be close to that word.
Rotten to the core.
And what's being described as rotten?
Manchester United as a club. I don't think Solskjaer's performance is, but from the very highest level, the entire institution.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can argue with that, Johnny, can they? And that's not just an instant thing. That's been over a good few years, Johnny. This has been happening. Mourinho's comments when they were runners-up, and he came out and said, that is my finest achievement in football, to get that group of players to be second in the Premier League. And kind of people frowned upon it and said, well, really? Really? Well, he's proving now he knew that group wasn't good enough, and now that's a couple of years on, and it's the same group that's playing there, and it hasn't really changed. The new players that have been brought in the summer have done really well, in Daniel James, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, but the rest of them, they should have been moved on, they should have been cleared out, and they are nowhere near the standards of Manchester United Football Club, of what they had in the past. But the standards of Manchester United Football Club now and the great history, it's gone, Johnny. You know, history is the past. Man City have gone way past them. Chelsea currently are way past them. Liverpool way past them. They're nowhere near any of these teams. And there's several others. Arsenal, your team, Johnny, even though you like Tottenham, they are way past them. They're miles behind.
Well, earlier on, you quite rightly gave me a rocket for suggesting that the likes of United or Everton couldn't get relegated. I think you're right. United showing relegation form. There is now some slightly joking, but still very present talk of a potential relegation for Manchester United. If they were to go down, how would they fare in the Championship?
Johnny, you've got a fantastic team of young producers that sit outside in the office, and they all contribute to what you all do, and they're all well educated, they all love sport, and they do all these bits and pieces. Just imagine if there's one of that team sitting out in the office here at Love Sport that was an absolute pain in the backside, complained about everything, moaned about everything, and had a bad attitude. After a while, that would spread round the rest of this office, and performance out here in the hot seat where you sit and you do this show, and Guy, our producer, it would spread. It would be rotten. It would be rancid, and it would be negative, and it would creep into people's mindset. Well, at Manchester United, they've had that now with the goalkeeper and Rashford telling everybody in the world that they want to leave and go and play in Spain, and that Rashford and the other players are not happy with it. And there's certain players there that have been there too long. They're just not good enough for that football club. They shouldn't be playing at that football club. They should have been got out and moved on. But for some reason, there's far too many of them there. What would that lot be like, going and play in the Championship? Oh, my God, could you imagine it? Could you imagine it? Do you think they'd come straight back up? Look at Stoke. Look at Huddersfield. Everyone says yes, Johnny, as though it's just, because they're Manchester United and they've had a great history. That makes them going to be a good team because of their history and their fantastic stadium. And Sir Alex Ferguson's, Bobby Charlton, George Best. Those days have gone. Those days, while people keep talking about them, they're nowhere near it. Wolves have spent good money on good players, and they've got that camaraderie and unity under that manager. Man United have not got that.
It's a frightening time. It is a frightening time to be a United fan. Get in touch, 0208 70 20 558. That's to WhatsApp or call. If United got relegated to the Championship, would they come back up? Martin Allen is saying not necessarily.
An actor, a journalist, and a comedian walk into a bar, and they're all whining about Donald Trump.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site aspokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long. but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love sport.
For once, the kids are in the headlines in the Premier League. Chelsea, of course, partly forced into it by a transfer ban. We've got the likes of Tammy Abraham, the likes of Mason Mount really excelling. Arsenal getting in on the act as well. Bukayo Saka playing regularly. Joe Willock playing regularly. But it's not just in the Premier League that these guys are featuring. If we go down to the Championship, we've got the likes of Conor Gallagher on loan at Charlton, looking really, really impressive. And this prompted us to think, well, let's just have a look. Let's have a bit of an investigation into England and the talent that's available at the youth levels and see how good a team we can build, how strong this pool of talent coming through is, because a lot's been made of Adi Boothroyd's latest under-21 squad, which we'll get into in a moment because it is full, frankly, of extraordinary talent. But we set ourselves a little challenge and we've come up with the best squad or the best 11 of players you can make with English talent 19 and under. So they have to be teenagers, right? The back four leaves a little bit to be desired, but from that point onwards, it is extraordinary. Martin, I'd be interested to hear if there's anyone you'd throw in who I've missed out. I've gone for 19-year-old Brentford keeper Ellery Balcom in goal, a back four of Ryan Sessegnon, the Spurs multi-million-pound signing at left-back, Mark Guehi, who's featured for Chelsea a couple of times this season at centre-half. All of those first three are 19. Jonathan Panzo of Monaco, 19, is the other centre-half. And Reece James, who scored 1 and assisted 2 on Chelsea debut, he's 19. He comes in at right-back. But it's from midfield where this 19 and under side gets really, really exciting. Phil Foden of Manchester City runs the show in the middle of the park. He's 19. Morgan Gibbs-White, who's already got loads of Premier League football under his belt at Wolves, he is 19. And we complete that midfield three with the brilliant Dwight McNeil of Burnley, who, despite being a key figure for his club, it's easy to forget, is just 19. And that front three, frankly, is good enough to play for any top 6 club in the Premier League, with the exception of the front two. They are absolutely brilliant. Callum Hudson-Odoi of Chelsea, 18. Mason Greenwood of Manchester United, 18. And Jadon Sancho, the most exciting teenager in world football, Borussia Dortmund, 19. Martin, these guys are literal children, and most of them are already ready for Premier League. They are, and they're ready for Premier League football. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, there's some good players in there, Johnny. I don't know all of them, I've got to be honest with you. I don't know the boy from Monaco, Panzo, who 19-year-old centre-back. Is he a good player, Johnny? What do you know about him?
I'm not going to pretend that I watch a huge amount of Monaco's youth teams, but he is very highly rated. He's featured for them, and he's a ball-playing centre-half as well, which is, of course, the kind of player we're looking to bring through.
No, there are some exciting players. I'm just reading through your lineup. Sessegnon, the amount of goals he's scored at Championship level at Spurs, he's been injured, hasn't really played. I don't know the goalkeeper at Brentford, Balcom, I don't know him. I don't know Mark Guehi. Is that a
Guehi, I think.
Yeah, I don't really know him, to be honest. So that's the two centre-backs I don't know. Reece James at Chelsea, I do know him, the right-back that we're seeing at the moment. I think it's a matter of time before he's in there in the Premier League, and he'll probably... the Liverpool one might be a bit better than him at the moment, but he could go all the way with that one. Foden, been a bit frustrated. We ain't seen a little bit more of him really at Man City. I think the manager wants to play him, but then he don't play him, and probably the players getting a little bit frustrated for seeing players in that England squad his age playing games, and he's missing out. So hopefully soon he's going to get a game. And Morgan Gibbs-White at Wolves, he is a good player. He gets his foot in, he's mobile, he's good on the ball. He is a good player and he's exciting. And one that you sniffed at the other week when I said that, Dwight McNeil, he is a good player, by the way.
I didn't sniff at him. I just said I wouldn't play him for the senior.
He's a proper good player. It ain't going to be long before he's
Still don't get
on.
too many left-footers coming through, do we? And yet there in one midfield,
with pace.
You got Foden and McNeil.
And then up front, Mason Greenwood, we've got him there, and I've put a question mark against him because I think he's at Manchester United at the moment what I would call a difficult time. With senior players not doing it, he's being thrown on, he's being put into games. I don't think he played that well last week. I just think it's a tough time for him to be at Manchester United. Whereas if he'd have been at Manchester United a few years ago with those fantastic teams, they'd have put him on with 20 minutes to go and he'd have probably notched one or two. But Sancho, who was rested at the weekend by Dortmund, and Hudson-Odoi, who played well at Southampton the other day, we have got some good players coming through, Johnny.
We really have.
Some proper good. And there's another one that you've missed out on, who went from Notts County to Tottenham, a 6'6".
The centre
forward. And he is also different. He's different, but he's crouch-like, but he also has good skills and he's got pace. What's his name, Johnny? I don't know.
He did go in the summer. We will find that out. Speaking as a 6'6" centre forward, they're not all quick. But
Johnny, if anyone gets that name and tweets it in or rings it in, we've got to get him a prize.
Okay, done.
Speaking of prize, remember, go to Love Sport Radio on Twitter and retweet and follow us for a chance to win a signed Manchester United Teddy Sheringham shirt.
It is a very, very good point.
We got a what?
A sign. We are giving away a Manchester United shirt signed by the legendary treble winner Teddy Sheringham.
And it's done well getting that.
It's a retro shirt as well from that kind of era.
Station.
Friend of the station, Teddy.
Prize.
I've interviewed Teddy Sheringham on Love Sport Radio. Very nice man. Bear in mind, with our 11 we've just listed, that's 19 and under, right? So if we now turn our attention...
Johnny, I'm so glad you did this because, while a lot of those guys are already household names, and while a lot of them are on the cusp of being that,
that's
if
the
you
second
like,
string of the kids.
To actually see it written down as a team like that and to see their ages, to be reminded that, for example, Foden, 19, Gibbs-White, who is a really exciting player and a show of how strong Wolves are, that they don't need to rely on him a little bit more, as Man United already are with someone like Greenwood. To see these numbers 1-8 or 1-9 next to all those names, you just think, oh my God, my dreams of being a professional footballer really are coming to a pretty abrupt end here. But there's other players, and they might have just turned 20, so they're missing out. But look at Nketiah and what he's doing at Leeds.
Yep.
For example, if you want a bit of competition for that striker spot, Reece Nelson had a really good year at Hoffenheim in a league where young players are doing really well, and he's getting a chance at Arsenal as well. Max Aarons giving competition to Reece James for the right-back spot. And that's not to mention Wan-Bissaka is just getting in the seniors as well.
And Trent.
And Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier.
No, they've gone, those two. The one at Arsenal, you've missed him out, Saka.
Bukayo Saka, who's only in the under-19s.
He is a proper player. He is going to be right there when it comes to being picked for England. He is and Willock as well. The midfield player, I think we've done a couple of clips from him last week with you, Guy.
Yeah.
He is also a fantastic player. So these older players, like we're seeing Dyer playing for Spurs, these lads are going to be wiped away. Dele Alli, these players, they're going to the next lot.
I wanted to come to exactly that, and I wanted to come to a pair of United players as well, Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford in particular, and I wanted to make the comparison, or even just to urge people to cast their minds back just a couple of years. Euro 2016 it was for Marcus Rashford and Dele Alli. Rashford was the real bolter because he'd only been playing for United for literally a handful of months, a handful of games he played. Dele Alli had a breakthrough season at Spurs, but he was just 19 years old or 20 years old back at Euro 2016. He started all the big games for us, and these guys were the big hopes. And then in turn, there's always one that comes along. Now Foden's probably the kind of star name. You got Sancho as well. He's really making his way in the senior side, and they're all such exciting players. But the point is, in my mind, there have always been exciting players. Even when there were dark times for the England football team, we've had exciting players on the cusp of coming through. Jack Wilshere, remember how exciting he was? Remember when he ran the game and won the game for Arsenal against Barcelona, against Xavi and Iniesta? What's he doing now? He's fighting out for a place on the bench at West Ham. Not the worst thing in the world, but it is far from world-beating, the sort of thing we hoped
where we thought he was going to go.
That he might be. And I would just say, looking at these players, not to say that they're all going to follow that path. I think we've got a better youth structure in place at clubs and international level. But I am so wary of overhyping young players and seeing them for whatever reason.
No, don't be wary. These are good.
You think they're all better than any of the people I've just mentioned?
These are good.
I think
but you two have missed one out,
Who's
and
that?
especially you, Johnny, because you've had a couple of hours to work on it, and you have missed out what I think is probably at the moment, is the best of all the young ones at the moment.
You're going to say Declan Rice?
No, Johnny, no. Mason Mount.
Yeah, Mason Mount. The only reason he's not in there is he's 20, so he can't get into our under 20, and he is already in the seniors. 5 now,
goals,
something
isn't it, this
staggering.
from midfield.
I got him in my fantasy team before
and
he
that
started
donut
scoring.
Mourinho said about him the other week when he was doing his commentaries, punditry, he said, why you pick him? I mean, he's got 5 goals now.
Because he's exciting, he's young, he's English, and he scores goals.
Yeah,
Jose, next question.
Yeah, we'll beat
How is
Portugal.
the
See you later.
retirement home? I think it's a very good point. Guy, what I'd say on the Wilshere front is, firstly, yes, you're correct. But secondly, there is an attitude problem with Jack Wilshere. There always has been an attitude problem with Jack Wilshere. And there is the question of attitude with these young lads. It's not just about quality. And you're right to say that a lot of them aren't going to live up to their potential. But if I read down this list, we've got our 11. We've then got the 25-man under-21 squad that Adi Boothroyd has named to face Slovenia and Australia. And there are names in there, by the way, that we haven't even mentioned. Todd Cantwell, who's excelling
he's a good player
for
at
Norwich
Norwich.
City.
How old is he?
21. Ryan Brewster, who's yet to break through at Liverpool, but is
Still a
superb.
teenager.
He was the star of that under-17 World
you're right,
Cup win.
you're
It
right.
wasn't even Foden quite. It wasn't even Hudson-Odoi quite. It
Player
was
of the
Brewster.
tournament was Foden, wasn't it?
Yes, but the Golden Boot winner was Brewster. I think they
yeah, it
shared
was,
it.
yeah.
Tom Davies already plays for Everton. The point I'm making is that if 30% of these players make it, if 25% of these players make it, we're going to have somewhere between 5 and 10 properly brilliant players to add in to an existing setup which already has Harry Kane, it already has John Stones, it has Declan Rice, it has Mason Mount.
The future looks bright. I would not deny it, but you know, a lot of these players, to kind of paraphrase David Cameron, Marcus Rashford was the future once. Dele Alli was the future once. You have to be careful. You can't get overexcited because you just don't know. Injury, attitude, form, they all
Brexit
come into it.
referendum.
Brexit referendums and money, and you know those sort of things can be distracted. They can change players' career paths. It all comes into it. And one of these comparisons that are normally pretty odious, but perhaps is relevant here. I saw between Marcus Rashford and a certain Lord Bentner. Their records are almost identical for Man United and
Who's
Arsenal,
Lord
respectively.
Bentner?
Nicholas.
Do you remember Nicholas Bentner? He used to play for Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know, he is now a literal lord, by the way, because there are websites where you can go online and for a fairly reasonable fee, kind of 150 quid, you can buy 1 square metre of land in the Scottish Highlands, which technically does make you a lord, and someone did that for Bentner.
For him. Does he know he's an actual lord?
I think he does, yeah.
I could see you getting one of them.
I've
I
already
don't
got
think he needs
one, mate.
one, yeah.
More than a square metre.
Lord Johnny.
I hope you watch this on YouTube. You would have seen a brilliant attempted wink from Johnny as he tried to convince Martin that he is a landowner of great wealth and
I'm
also
not.
a lord. I'd like to see the evidence of that. But yeah, some exciting prospects coming through, and let's hope that they don't fall by the way. So let's hope that they do better than Marcus Bentner Rashford. I think that's harsh, by the way. I think we can get into it more a bit later. It's misleading.
It is misleading, but I think there is a conversation to be had as well about how we perceive players, about what kind of player and what background of player we consider to be exciting and what kind of striker we don't. Nicholas Bentner was lumbering and unexciting, but he did score goals. Marcus Rashford...
And he did wear Paddy Power pants.
He did. Marcus Rashford is very, very quick. He's very direct. And there is an element with Rashford, I'm convinced, where the story is romantic. The narrative is good, and that's a part of it. When he breaks into the first team and scores twice in his debut against Midtjylland, and then goes and scores twice in his Premier League debut against Arsenal, the received wisdom becomes Marcus Rashford is brilliant, whereas Nicholas Bentner misses a couple of open goals, and the received wisdom is Nicholas Bentner is rubbish. I think we have a problem. I would go as far to say is a problem in football in this country, where we kind of decide what the zeitgeist is about a player and we all follow it. And maybe Rashford's benefiting from that. Don't go anywhere.
This is Love Sport.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Every day someone dies waiting for a transplant. From spring 2020, the law around organ donation in England is changing to allow more people to pass on more organs to save more lives. Unless you choose to opt out or in an excluded group, all adults will be considered as a possible organ donor when they die. Whatever your choice, make it clear to your family and closest friends to ensure your decision is honoured. To find out more, or for the choice to opt out, visit organdonation.nhs.uk. Pass it on.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
I have my own radio station too. It's called Love Trump Radio, the only station 100% fair and 112% factual.
Love Sport.
Well, more questions being asked at Manchester United after that 1-0 defeat to Newcastle at the weekend. Steve Bruce, of course, managing the Toon, and before that, he was winless in 22 games against Manchester United. It took him 23 attempts to get a win. Martin Allen, do you believe in bogey teams?
Well, Johnny, we've been speaking about this through the break as you're picking your nose there, and I couldn't think.
Scratch it.
What was that word? Zeitgeist?
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. I've been thinking, and my zeitgeist suggests I cannot recall having one of those bogey teams.
You've never had one?
I can't think of one.
Okay.
I can't think of one that would stick in my mind and think, well, that was a tricky, always going to be a tricky time for playing against them. The bigger the club, the more often than not, the better I would kind of play. So no, I can't really help you on that one, which is which would be a team where you think, oh my God, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare for me today. I can't fathom this one out.
Have you ever had a managerial bogey rival? A bogey manager, if you like, because Wolves beat Manchester City again at the weekend, and now Nuno Espirito Santo's record, his win percentage against Pep Guardiola, the genius of modern football, in all competitions. Nuno has a 75% win record against Pep. For every 4 games they play, Nuno wins 3 of them. Did you ever have another manager where whoever he was managing, whatever club he was at, if you saw that he was the gaffer, he just had your system worked out?
No.
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 But you were 53 other people's bogey manager.
I never, honestly, I can honestly say, I wouldn't know the stats. I'm sure you could find someone, but I never had that mindset where I was thinking, oh my God, we're playing against his team today. It's going to be a tough one. I never had that mindset.
I suppose you lost to everyone. So, yeah it doesn't really make... Yeah, you think he's beat me 3 times, he's beat me 4 times. They're all bogey managers. They just became managers to you.
Yeah, that's right, Guy. Yeah, well done. No, so I can't really remember anyone that would be outstanding, that would jump forward and say, oh, that was a tough one. No, I'm afraid I'm not very good at this one.
Would you relish, Martin? Would you relish if you were, say, a Premier League manager now, and some of the managerial brains, if you like, that you'd be coming up against? It'd probably be fair to say it's considered that we've got a higher calibre of manager in the Premier League than we've ever had. Especially you look at the big 3, as I think of them as, certainly Pochettino, Klopp, and of course Guardiola. Would you relish that challenge? I mean, is that an obvious, stupid question, or would there be a part of you going, oh God, let me play against a Roy Hodgson team or a Steve Bruce team any day of the week. Not to say they don't make good football teams, but just a little bit more what you're going to get, and it is probably something you're more used to having played against and set teams up against over the course of your football life.
Guy, a few years ago, I had a really good Brentford team, and we had a couple of good cup runs where we got to the 5th round of the FA Cup and got replays with a really hard-working, decent team. And the tie that I really wanted was Chelsea away, because their manager at the time was called Jose Mourinho.
Okay.
And he was very confident, he was very assured, and at times he was arrogant. And a lot of my friends are Chelsea season ticket holders, and I really wanted to be in the technical area next to him. And the plan was, this is when the draws, I know the draw's been made this afternoon for the FA Cup, which is funny enough, but I wanted the chance for Brentford to play away at Chelsea in the technical area, and as soon as Mourinho said anything or stepped out that box, I'd fantasised about my response, and my reply was to get him.
Is it something you can repeat?
Well, I think you'd have to imagine, that Brentford team was a pretty hard-working, disciplined, set play type team.
Yeah.
Not great on the eye, but effective and efficient. And he wouldn't have liked that, of course. And of course, we'd have tried to do something that was going to upset their mojo or their rhythm. And I just wanted to upset him, basically.
When you're talking about being effective, what is stopping United from being effective? Because against Newcastle, they weren't that bad. They lost 1-0 to a goal from outside the box. They had 68% of the possession. They just couldn't break Newcastle down. What's stopping them from doing that?
Well, Johnny, that's a really good question. And we spoke earlier, and I've done an analogy with the young staff out here at Love Sport. If you've got one or two people in your team here at Love Sport that work so hard and so diligently, and everybody's got to work extra hours, long hours, research, they're always working to improve your shows, always working to make this a successful Love Sport radio. And it's been going really, really well. And then if someone starts turning up late, or just sitting there flicking around with a cup of coffee and not pulling his weight, all of a sudden, the team of Love Sport, which you've got out there with all these young people that work here, so with energy and enthusiasm and good quality, it must be said, it's going to disrupt everybody.
So you think it's a psychological thing?
And within the changing room, if you've got players that don't really want to be there, if you've got players that are looking around and thinking, why is he in this dressing room? He's nowhere near good enough for Manchester United. I don't want him here. He shouldn't be here. He's not part of this. He's not. I need to be playing Champions League. I don't want to be playing with these useless type players. Attitude around the club. And that is clearly what's happening at Manchester United. There's far too many players that are not good enough. And if you've got players that don't want to be in that dressing room, pulling on that shirt, you've got to get rid of them. And they're hanging around for De Gea to sign that blinking contract in the summer that every time they came back from a tour, Guy was saying, I think he's going to sign that today. I think he's going to sign that today. And after 2 weeks of him saying that, he was thinking, well, what's going on here? Imagine what the players and the staff and everybody's begging him, and he was useless at the end of last season because his mindset was clearly not at Man United, because he wanted to go and play instead of that rubbish goalkeeper that Real Madrid have got. Caught nothing. Courtois.
Caught nothing. Very,
you know what
very
I mean?
good. No, I do
but
know what you mean.
You can't have that in any working environment, whether it's in Love Sport, whether it's a travel agent, whether it's a estate agent. If you haven't got everybody on board going in the same direction, you're useless. And that's why when we spoke about Crystal Palace earlier, you could say that Roy has got, even with Wilf, everybody on board.
Well, you mentioned the goalkeepers just a moment ago, and we've got some big breaking news about Spurs captain Hugo Lloris. Guy Watts has more.
Yeah, that's right, Johnny. Just in the last couple of moments, we've been told that Tottenham captain Hugo Lloris has been ruled out of action until the new year. The goalkeeper, of course, dislocated his elbow in Saturday's Premier League defeat at Brighton. Spurs say he suffered ligament damage but won't require surgery, so a small positive in that regard. Just a couple of other quick sporting headlines for you. Tennis, Andy Murray's battled back from a set down to reach the second round at the Shanghai Masters. The former world number one beat Argentina's Juan Ignacio Londero 2-6, 6-2, 6-3 as he continues his return to singles action. But Carl Edmund lost in straight sets to Jeremy Chardy, meaning he'll lose his status as British number one. Cam Norrie got past Frenchman Gilles Simon and could take Edmund's place if he performs well this week. And in cricket, and this is a big story, and we're going to talk a bit more about this now, Chris Silverwood says he's thrilled and honoured to be the new head coach of the England team. He steps up from his role as bowling coach to replace Trevor Bayliss, who left after the Ashes this summer. Silverwood led Essex to the county championship title in 2017, and managing director of England Cricket Ashley Giles says they've appointed a winner. And I just want to play you what Ryan Sidebottom, who's a friend of Love Sport Radio, of course a former England bowler, had to say on this appointment. He played with Chris Silverwood at Yorkshire. Chris Silverwood, a very good bowler, played for England a few times in his career as well. This is what Ryan Sidebottom makes of that appointment.
He knows all the players, he knows the senior players in and around all the counties. So he'll know who's being consistent, who's scoring runs, who looks in good form, who can play on the biggest stage in terms of mentally and technically.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that Ryan Sidebottom makes, and we talked about this earlier and we didn't kind of ram that one home, but I think it's a really significant one. The fact that he knows the county game so well. The biggest criticism probably directed at Trevor Bayliss was his lack of knowledge of the county game, and there was a lot of mitigating facts in that, mainly the fact that the England cricket coach job takes up 90% of your time. Almost literally, you're flying off around the world if you're not playing a match at home. And the point was that he didn't have that base of knowledge to draw on because he's an Australian. He'd come from a different kind of domestic game, and that's why Jason Gillespie was some people's favourite. For example, the former Australia bowler doing good things down as coach of Sussex. Exactly, but Chris Silverwood has very recent knowledge of the game as a coach. He also played extensively in it. He knows the English cricket setup, the county championship setup. He knows what makes a really good player and the difference between someone who can make it at test level and someone who can't. And I think that is going to be crucial if England are going to make it back to somewhere near the top of the test rankings, as of course they are in the white ball rankings currently. We're going to be talking a bit more about this with Alan Gardner from ESPN Cricket Info after 6, but I think we agreed earlier, a good appointment. You know, he's obviously got the respect and the trust of the team. He's been part of the coaching setup for a while. Let's just hope that little bit of extra knowledge of the red ball game here in England can mean that we have improvements in that part of the game as much as we've seen in one-day cricket as well.
Listen, everyone's going to be behind him, and it just remains to see what he's got in his locker. All the best to him.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum. And I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
This is Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, but we are turning our attentions to the athletics, the good, the bad, and the dopey, Guy Watts.
Yeah, I think ugly would have worked really well too, Johnny, but I like what you did with it there. Can we get any more of the Seven Dwarfs into this discussion?
Ooh, probably Sleepy.
Almost certainly Sleepy. You're right there, Martin? You got a little video or something there? Yeah, we're going to hear quickly from Sifa Hassan. She won a double gold medal at the World Championships. She won the 1500 metre gold medal this weekend, having earlier won the 10,000 metre gold medal. She is a controversial athlete, though, because she went to work with Alberto Salazar, the now disgraced controversial coach, of course, banned for 4 years, while he was already under investigation for those doping allegations. So she's been very controversial, as I say, but she's had a lot of people suggesting that she's been, part of this doping stuff, and she was very, very angry at that suggestion after winning the 1500 metres over the weekend.
I was just so angry and I couldn't talk to anyone. I just ran all out and I just want people so that hard workers can beat everything, can be better than everything.
So, yeah, very, very unhappy at some of the things that have been sent her way. But, and I would agree with Michael Johnson here, he says that she has every right to, or people have every right to be a little bit suspicious, to be a little bit critical of the timing of her move to work with Alberto Salazar. Whether she's guilty of anything or not, it's inevitable that there are going to be suspicions. Fair to say that the BBC have missed the mark by quite a long way with a lot of their punditry and the comments that their big-name pundits have made over the last week or so. Michael Johnson, their, of course, former 200-metre and 400-metre Olympic champion pundit, he had this to say in response to Sifa Hassan.
I understand her anger, and I get that, but yes, that is a question that she's going to have to get prepared for. She made the decision to go to the Oregon Project. At the time that she went, Salazar was under investigation, and she has to realize, and any athlete in that organization has to realize that is going to be attached to them. They're going to have to answer these questions. If you are clean and you want to prove to them that you're clean, you're not going to get that done by being angry and going out and saying, I ran because I was angry and I want to prove to everyone I'm clean. You have to say, I understand why people are angry. I understand why people have these accusations against me, and then appeal to them that you're clean and that you support clean sport, and then go about your business. But showing that anger is not going to get you anywhere, and these athletes have to realize that.
You'd have to say that Michael Johnson is spot on. If she is clean, if she's genuinely clean, and she's never broken any rules, and she's winning and she's running the races of her lives, and she's still got people asking questions, I feel for her to an extent. And I can completely see why she feels the way she feels. But I also don't have that much sympathy. You have chosen to associate with someone who there are question marks over. This is different to Mo Farah, by the way, who started working with Salazar back in 2011. Now, back in 2011, there hadn't been serious allegations made. The first wave, which were made in a programme of BBC's Panorama, came in 2015. Now, you could say, Mo, you chose to stay with Salazar for 2 years after that. That is a valid criticism as well. But this athlete has chosen to go and work at the Nike Oregon Project, to work with Alberto Salazar after she knew that he was probably the person being most investigated for doping offences in the whole of the sport. And she expects people to not question her own honesty. I can see where she's coming from, but also, how naive do you want to get?
But Johnny, how can you feel for her? What
Because
gives
if
you
she is
reason
clean-
to sit back here and say, you go and work with the cheating coach, even after he's been under investigation? How can you feel for her?
Because we don't know if he was cheating with her, and if he wasn't...
No,
But you wouldn't go with that coach, would you?
Well, you might.
Why would you?
Because if the coach is getting extraordinary results, and it's important to note that obviously there are no allegations levelled at Mo Farah. Mo Farah has never
But he was
failed a
under
drugs test.
investigation.
He was, but he was still getting people gold medals. And if
someone's under investigation,
yeah,
and you walk along the road and you knock on his front door, he's under investigation for drugs and doping.
Yep.
You knock on his front door and say, "Excuse me, can you help me, please?" What you're asking for,
Johnny, isn't it like a really basic life thing? For example, just to take another field completely, take a politician, right? Say someone who's trying to run for Prime Minister, for example, for leader of their own party, and if they want to hire a spin doctor, as most of them do, if you hire someone who has been done for some heinous crime within their, or is even under suspicion of doing it, then you would not touch that person with a barge pole, right? You would say, if there's one person I won't use at the moment, in athletics case it would have been Alberto Salazar, in politics case I don't know who the names might be, but there will be examples, and you
Boris
see my
Johnson.
point. Well, yeah, maybe, but the point is that the athletes, all they have is their integrity, their clean doping records, if you like, or their non-doping records, and all they've got to defend their sport and themselves is that. So why would you jeopardise it? I'm not saying she's doped, but to have that association clouding things, and that is a word, cloud, by the way, that both Laura Muir and Jenny Simpson, two very high-profile 1500-metre runners, have used in connection to the Nike Oregon project. Why would you bother? Why would you risk it?
You risk it because you want to win. And he has a proven track record of making people win. I completely see where you're both coming from, but I understand people. I don't support it by any means, but I understand someone who looks at a Salazar and goes, okay, you're under investigation. You haven't been found guilty of anything. Innocent until proven guilty. We have no way of knowing that she didn't go there, turn down any suggestion of any wrongdoing, worked with a coach who, again, did terrible things of which he has been found guilty. But aside from that, was still quite a good coach, was a guy with innovative methods. I don't think if she is clean, she deserves to be thrown under the bus.
Yeah, but Johnny, the point is
the same way that Mo doesn't.
It's a hypothetical that it is currently as it stands, that she is clean and that she has never failed drug tests and all that kind of thing. But it invites the unnecessary suspicion, scrutiny, and all the rest of it. And the point is that a sport is going to only keep eating itself up, as to a degree athletics is at the moment, if its leading athlete, she's no ordinary athlete, she ran the 6th fastest 1500 metre time ever on Saturday, okay? It's only going to keep eating itself up if its leading athletes choose to go and work with the people that are causing the sport its biggest problems. And don't get me wrong, it is a good thing that this doping ban has happened to Alberto Salazar. As Matt Lawton from The Times, who we spoke to last week, says, the point is you actually want the bad people getting caught. It's bad publicity, but the sport overall is healthier for it. The sport overall, whether it's healthier than it was 10 days ago as a result of these World Championships, I don't know, and that's another talking point. Seb Coe, the head of the IAAF, saying it's the best World Championships ever. I think, quite frankly, it's insulting some of the great World Championships we've had in recent years, not least here in London, but loads of others as well, where the stadiums have been full, the fans have absolutely loved it, the athletics has been brilliant, and there hasn't been an absolutely massive doping scandal tar the name of the sport and a lot of its leading athletes drop right in the middle of it. What planet he's on, I have no idea, not to mention some of the other stuff that's gone on. Obviously, you've had the empty stadiums, you've had the marathon starting at midnight and with 40% of the female runners dropping out. You've had the BBC pundits, or BBC failing to declare conflicts of interest from its pundits, and in turn, the pundits giving some pretty questionable analysis of some of the big talking points, including the Salazar ban. I think it's been a terrible 10 days for the sport, but Seb Coe clearly disagrees. He's a bit more qualified than I am, but I think on this one, I think I'm right. I think you agree with me, and I think we're right on this one. He's completely got it wrong.
Sebastian has got it wrong, hasn't he? Let's be honest. Hey, what's he thinking of?
I don't know.
What is he thinking of? It's about 300 degrees, isn't it? Every night.
What he is taking us for as athletics fans, as sports fans, is also a bit insulting, because if he thinks anyone's going to swallow that and go, oh yeah, it has been absolutely marvellous, I'll just forget about everything bad.
Guy, just on the athletics, just going away from the topic that you're talking about with the cheat coach. Why this time have we not had anything to get excited about with the male?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Because we've
had 5 medals, Martin, and we've had 4 of them be either female individuals or the female Formula 100 team. It's a bit bizarre. We spoke about this with Ewan last week, and he suggested 2 things. Obviously, it's a cyclical thing, really, and it can be generational. And you have good male athletes, good female, and it's kind of coincidental how they come through. Look, my knowledge of how UK athletics works isn't sort of strong and intricate enough to know exactly, which coach you're working with who and that kind of thing. There is talent, among the male athletes, but the point is that overall, 5 medals, lowest tally in 14 years, which a year out from the Olympics, as much as UK athletics are going to defend it as being part of the process and the journey, that word we hear so much, to Tokyo 2020, where of course things could improve. Laura Muir, for example, just one example of someone who was a bit affected by an injury and therefore didn't maybe get a medal as she might have done. So it's difficult. It's a little bit concerning. You do just have to think, have we become a little bit too demanding? And I'm not saying we have, but we have become used to much higher standards in athletics in all sports. Remember, in 1996 in Atlanta at the Olympics, we had 1 gold medal, and that was Steve Redgrave and whoever he was rowing with at that time. So
Vincent.
it was Pinson and the Pears. You're quite right. And in
Know me
22
stuff,
years,
son, know me
23
stuff.
years.
Down at Henley, and I down at Leander Club.
Of course he is. He's the
down
right
on the river.
expert.
Oh, the
Down on
real
the river.
posh boy, the
Right,
undercover.
Steve, Matty. No,
Henley
not now, mate. I'm
posh
busy.
boy.
Yeah. Yeah, pop down for a coffee. No, I'm busy. Sorry, Steve.
That's why you're late to end it. You were Steve and Matty.
No, the bridges are all closed and the embankment's all closed because the environmentalists are trying to change the world.
Extinction Rebellion hard at work. By the way, Martin, they don't even let me into Henley because I'm not posh enough.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
Coming up on the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, we're going to be talking to George Shooter, former England hooker who played in the 2007 World Cup final. We're going to get his thoughts on the England team so far, that 39-10 win against Argentina, and the lacklustre performance of our next opponents, France, when they took on Tonga. We're also going to be talking to Alan Gardner, deputy editor of ESPN Crick Info, to get his take on Silverwood's appointment as new England head coach. And our top stories, Manchester United and Tottenham both struggling. When will it end?
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6, Boris Johnson says he'll talk to the White House if an American diplomat's wife doesn't return to the UK to face questions over a fatal car crash. Anne Sakoulas left the country after the accident, which killed a 19-year-old motorcyclist, and is claiming diplomatic immunity. The Prime Minister's given his reaction.
I do not think that it can be right to use the process of diplomatic immunity for this type of purpose, and I hope Anne Sakoulas will come back and will engage properly with the processes of law as they're carried out in this country.
Roads are being blocked in cities across Europe as protesters demand tougher action on climate change. Parts of central London are closed to traffic as thousands of people take part. There have been more than 200 arrests in the UK capital. Extinction Rebellion wants the UK to be carbon neutral by 2025, but energy expert Neil Strachan says that's almost impossible.
We have 25 million boilers in our houses. If you wanted to get them all out by 2025, that's 1 million every 2 months. Plus, you need the supply chain to do that. You need the power plants. And that's an extremely, extremely difficult challenge to meet.
A baby boy who was stabbed last week has died in hospital. The 3-week-old was injured in Newcastle on Wednesday, along with his mum, who's in a stable condition. A man's due in court later this month. 4 people have been arrested at Luton Airport by counter-terrorism officers on suspicion of being members of a banned group. 3 men and 1 woman from Sri Lanka arrived at the airport on Saturday and Sunday. Donald Trump has failed to block the release of his tax returns. It relates to allegations his company paid hush money to 2 women who claimed they had affairs with him, which he denies. And Sir David Attenborough says he's thrilled about his latest nature series, which airs later this month. 7 Worlds, One Planet took 4 years to make. That's the latest. I'm Anna Russell.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good evening. You are listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and special guest Martin Allen. We're with you till 7. Our top stories this evening. Manchester United are just 2 points above the relegation zone after defeat to Newcastle. Tottenham have more defeats than any other Premier League club this year in all competitions after losing to Brighton at the weekend. And it's at least going well for some people. Liverpool have the biggest ever lead after 8 Premier League games, 8 points clear. Martin.
How many seasons is that, Johnny? Record
Well, it started in 1992, so it's 28. This
28
is the
seasons
biggest
of the Premier
lead.
League. That's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. Biggest lead in 28 years. Is the title race over already?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Liverpool champions. Yes.
Undoubtedly.
As long as they stay fit. They've got those 3 forwards that make all the difference. But Origi has improved and is good coming on as a sub. I'm sure he will start to play more games. May rest 1 or 2 players here and there to keep them fresh coming through to February, March, April when it really, really matters. But no, the run that they're on now and the manager seems to be in good control. It's a good place to be, Anfield, at the moment for Liverpool. It's in a good place.
Are you sure City couldn't catch them? Liverpool and City still have to play each other twice. It's not inconceivable that City should win both of those games. Suddenly, you've got a 2-point lead.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from, Johnny, but I don't think that's going to happen. With Laporte being injured, he was an absolute key player. And then with Kompany going off to Anderlecht and Delph also going over to Everton, 3 good players gone out. And then David Silva said that he was going to be quitting at the end of the season. This is his last year, and that's never quite the same. And when you've won 2 championships, that edge and that competitive edge that you get to win that title and that Aguero moment, it's not quite the same because you've done it. You've seen it. You've done it. And they'll probably be looking and got their eye off on their next move, where's my next challenge going to be that's going to enthusiasm and motivate them. So, no, I think it's all there for Liverpool just to... it'll be tough, but Liverpool are in too good a place.
Liverpool was 7 points clear after 20 games last year. They led with 5 games to play back in 2014 when Steven Gerrard notoriously slipped against Chelsea. And Newcastle blew a 12-point lead in 1996 when Kevin Keegan lost the plot. I will love it. So, you can slip from here.
Yeah, you can. But with this group and with Brendan's group as well, that they did have a bit of a meltdown, obviously, with the game at Crystal Palace, which we all saw. Nerves definitely set into their performance. But with this group, after losing it last year, after having such a great run, how many points did they get, Johnny? 90 what?
Liverpool 97.
97 points and not winning it was quite remarkable. I think they will be 100% hungry and focused and have that edge to win the Premier League that I just cannot see it not going to Anfield.
In a funny way, the fact that they weren't quite as brilliant as they normally are against Leicester made me more convinced that they're a top side. Winning with a dodgy penalty that could possibly be seen as a dive in the 95th minute.
Did you think it was a dive?
No, but I am notoriously sympathetic to divers. For me, I think he invites contact, shall we say, but I don't think he dived. I think he was very, very clever about getting himself touched and then falling over, which technically means it is a foul. But winning those kinds of games, it's not pretty, it's not particularly charming, but it is what ends up bringing championships.
It is, and I think it's crucial. I don't actually think they've hit top form properly yet. I don't think they're anywhere near it.
They've won 17 on the bounce in the league. Have they got more to come?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. It's been, like you said, a unit of drilled winning. It's just been doing enough to win the games and at times not playing well. If you remember with Sir Alex Ferguson all those years ago, how many times they would score in the last few minutes of games just to get them the win that were getting closer and closer to those titles. It wasn't always spectacular. It wasn't always special. And this Liverpool's got that trait where it's not always great to watch, but they win.
Well, there are some big news from the world of cricket today as well. England have announced their new head coach, and it's not the World Cup winning coach Gary Kirsten. We'd all rather assumed it might be him. Instead, it's the former Essex coach Chris Silverwood, who's been England bowling coach for the last few years. Alan Gardner is deputy editor of ESPN Cricinfo, and he joins us on the line now. Good evening, Alan. Lovely to speak to you. Was this a surprise to you, and do you think Kirsten might have been a bit of a smokescreen?
Well, in some ways, yes, because it did seem as if kind of Ashley Giles' search was heading towards someone with a bit more experience than Silverwood. Kirsten kind of emerged as the favourite last week. I think Alex Stewart was actually kind of heavily tipped, but then he pulled out of the race. Kirsten apparently didn't interview as well as perhaps ECB had hoped he would. And Silverwood, I think, was always a contender. In fact, he's an English coach, sort of, that's good for PR. He's known by the squad, he's known by the setup. I think he'll be a safe pair of hands. Clearly, there was a bit of a temptation to sort of look outside, but in the end, yeah, they've plumped for continuity and a man who knows a lot about kind of England's winning, certainly in one-day formats, under Trevor Bayliss.
And in terms of the interview, I'm interested by this idea of a sporting coach not interviewing well. I always rather lazily assume that is the preserve of bankers and lawyers and journalists. But how important is it that these guys can talk a good game as well?
Well, I guess they have to talk to the press, whether they like it or not. Usually in the job, and they've got to be able to win over key people. The ECB, the decision makers in this case. It sounds like Tom Harrison and Ashley Giles were involved in that. Kirsten, sort of famously quite a laid-back coach, perhaps gave something of a laid-back presentation. There were also some concerns, I think, lingering ones about the fact he had kind of initially ruled himself out because the kind of the strain on family life, if you're going to be in charge of an international team, is kind of all year round, even if England are sort of planning to share the workload a bit with the assistants. Kirsten had initially said, that's not for me, and then he got fired from his IPL franchise and his circumstances changed a little bit. So there's perhaps that in the back of the mind for Ashley Giles as well, that whether Kirsten was kind of as into the job as England were into the idea of having him. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously results on the field are more important, but you've got to win over those decision makers too.
What are Silverwood's strengths as a coach, and where is he perhaps slightly weaker?
Well, I mean, he doesn't have as much experience as someone like Gary Kirsten. That's straight off the CV, as it were, for back to the interview process. He did very well in county cricket with Essex. Had 2 seasons as the head coach there, won Division 2, and then immediately won Division 1, which is pretty rare. Essex, a small club, not massive resources, but he built great sort of team spirit, team unity, got them all working towards a common goal. I think as a coach, he'll keep things simple, which at international level is probably the best thing. Most of the players know how to play by the time they've got there, and there was the whole Peter Moore's sort of woodpecker thing about when he stepped up and gave the players perhaps too much information. So I think Silverwood will be a bit like Bayliss in that respect, kind of a bit hands-off and just kind of tried to guide the ship. But he doesn't have as much experience. He hasn't coached an international team before. He hasn't coached a franchise or T20 leagues around the world, that sort of thing. And he hasn't had the pressure. He hasn't worked in such a pressured role. So that's going to be new to him. He's going to have to get his head around that and the scrutiny that comes with being England coach.
We've heard quite a lot over the past couple of months about the desire of everyone involved with the England cricket for the focus to be on the World Cup and all those other types of cricket competitions. Is it going to go back to the red ball cricket and test matches and the emphasis more on playing test cricket rather than smash it cricket?
That does seem to be the case. England have got pretty good at smashing it, but the more subtle skills perhaps deserted them a little bit under Bayliss. Silverwood, I think Ashley Giles is quite clear. The remit there is going to be improve the Test standing. The World Test Championship is up and running now, and there is the goal of winning an Ashes in Australia, having failed to win this summer at home. Australia have held on to the urn, so that's a big target for Silverwood. His record with Essex was very good in red ball. They focused on championship cricket. They focused on basic things like getting big scores and letting scoreboard pressure help the bowlers out. They got a good spinner in Simon Harmer.
He's good, isn't he?
He's very good, and he's South African, but he could potentially come onto England's radar at some stage through the Kolpak qualification process. So, I mean, Silverwood knows how to build good first-class teams, good sort of test match disciplines, put big scores up, and then get the bowlers working in teams. He was the bowling coach, and he was a test match bowler. So, all those things put together suggest that he should have the sort of the basic ingredients for getting England's test match game back on track.
And when I'm sure you watched all the cricket through the summer, and England played Australia in that Test match where Ben Stokes done so well that day, how did you celebrate when Nathan Fumble Lyon dropped that ball for that run out?
How did I personally celebrate?
Yeah, I celebrated.
I was doing the live ball by ball commentary on Cricinfo, so I had to type rather quickly and sort of internally conceal my surprise. But
what a magic moment, though.
It was an incredible moment in a summer of incredible episodes for the cricket.
Mark, you've got to get over this. You're going to ask every cricket guest we ever get on
until the end of
that
time.
Moment. Well, Alan, I do apologise.
For me personally, he's Sports Personality of the Year.
Nathan Lyon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that fumble was just the best bit of sport I've seen all year. It was just magic.
Nathan Lyon could be ours. Ben Stokes is New Zealander of the year.
No, he's English.
All right, he's English. Alan, just lastly, we had the 100 launch last week. I haven't had a chance to get your thoughts on it since then. Just quickly, what did you make of it? I don't know if you attended it in person, but everything from the kits to the player announcements and everything else that went with it. Did you feel like it was one of the better days for the 100 so far, or still things that worried you?
Well, it's still proving a bit divisive, but I think at this stage, people that are sort of willing to buy in are willing to buy in, and the people that are against it just are having none of it still. Personally, it was good to see a step towards a more concrete competition. Team names, team colours, all that sort of thing. It's kind of exciting. There's also that nagging doubt that it's something the game doesn't really need. And if it goes wrong, it could have disastrous repercussions. But the closer we get, it's still kind of 8-10 months away until we actually play it. But there's another draft, or the full draft, in a couple of weeks, and it's beginning to feel a bit more real. Only time will tell what that really means for the game, I suppose.
Alan, an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Alan Gardner there, Deputy Editor of ESPN and Cricinfo, giving us his take on England's decision to name Silverwood as their new head coach. He's a bowling expert. He's a man who knows how to improve players, how to bring the best out of potential. Jofra Archer, are you listening?
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in.
No.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
I like Putin. He gets me. I like Trump. I've got him.
This is Love Sport.
Sweet love, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me on. Sweet love.
I know it might sound cliche, but I really haven't thought about the quarterfinal yet. We said we want to come in and win 7 games. We're taking it 1 game at a time, and we're really just thinking about France. I don't think we can afford to think far ahead at the moment because we want to give all our attention to France.
England winger Johnny May there, keeping it very, very cool after another win at the World Cup. 3 from 3, 39-10 against Argentina. Always a pleasure to beat them. Always a pleasure as well to be joined on the line by George Shooter, former England hooker who played in the 2007 World Cup final. Good evening, George. Lovely to speak to you. Do you believe, Johnny? Do you really think that these lads aren't thinking about the quarter-final?
Yes and no. I think human nature means that you'll have half an eye on the quarter-final. I guess the other half will be focused on France because France are a dangerous team, and also you don't know who you're playing in the quarter-final just yet, so you can't be preparing for something you don't know much about. But yeah, I mean, it'll be there in the back of your mind. But as professional sportsmen, their job is next week, next game, and that's what they'll be fully focused on. Certainly when they're training.
What did you make of the Argentina game? What encouraged you and what maybe left cause for concern?
Well, I don't think it was a particularly fluent display by England, even against the 14 men that they were sending off. Lavanini effectively killed the game as a contest, I don't think Argentina are particularly strong at the moment anyway. They don't seem to be playing anywhere near as well as they were perhaps 12 months ago. But England look steady. They seem to have settled on a game plan that involves probably a lot more kicking than we were expecting. I think when you see George Ford in the fly-half position ahead of Owen Farrell, you're probably expecting him to sort of sling it about a bit and play a bit more rugby. But they seem quite happy to kick the ball into the opposition third and put them under pressure, and that works pretty well. The Argentinians didn't have a lot of answers for it. And obviously the Tongs and the USA are probably slightly underpowered compared to the French, but it'd be interesting to see. The kicking game undid the French a couple of years ago at Twickenham, so maybe I suspect they'll continue that sort of vein of form.
George, Sir Clive Woodward has come out and said the only team that could topple or beat New Zealand is England. So far from what you've seen, and I don't really know my rugby very well. So far from what I've seen, I thought we were pretty good, but not as getting off the edge of me sofa, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Do you think that we could beat that New Zealand lot?
Not at the moment, no.
No.
I think England are a very sort of stop-start. They're not really dominating. Have not dominated any of these games in any sort of particular phase. The scrums looks solid, if not spectacular. Line-out's been functional, but the forward packs haven't sort of run amok over teams, the 3 teams so far, and we're not scoring bucket loads of tries to suggest that our attacking game is on point. So, New Zealand, on the other hand, have dispatched the minnows as Namibia and those sort of teams are, they've dispatched them comfortably, putting 70 points on, and I think 80 points was in one of the other games. And obviously they beat South Africa in the first game as well. So the All Blacks are head and shoulders of everyone else at the moment in terms of their current form. Also their form since the last World Cup. They've lost 3 games in 4 years. The fact that those 3 games have come quite recently, I suppose, is largely irrelevant. But I think on current form, I don't think England stand a chance of beating New Zealand at the moment.
George, is there anything about this France team that gives you genuine cause for concern? Can they actually cause England a problem here?
I mean, again, you saw almost a tired cliche in rugby about the French. You never know who's going to turn up, and they can turn up and do the spectacular, and they can. I guess it's a tired cliche for a reason, because it's been true for a very, very long time. If you look at the individual players they've got some absolutely fantastic world-class talent. Young players, Penaud, the scrum half, Fiku can't hardly get a game. Medard at fullback. They've got players who can score tries from nothing. They've got a pack that can play some scintillating edge of the seat rugby. But they've also got players the same players, in fact, that can appear lacklustre and not interested, and that's when the French become sort of not a laughing stock. That's when you think, actually, these guys are really underachieving. But I mean, you take them lightly at peril. The French will always raise a game for the English, particularly in the World Cup. I mean, this is a huge occasion for them. They've had very little success against England in the World Cup. In fact, I'm not too sure. I can remember maybe 1995 third place playoff is one of the worst games I've ever seen. Was probably the last time the French beat England in the World Cup. So they've got lots to play for. They've got some fantastically exciting young players, and you fall asleep on them at your own peril.
George, I was going to ask you about that winger they've got called from Fijian-born Alvaretti Raka. How good's he?
Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah, he's a big, fast, strong, skillful player. So that tells you all you need to know. But I mean, again, the ball's got to get to him. Do the French front five have enough grunt? Do they have enough desire to really get stuck into England and win the ball? That's the question for me. But if they do, the winger's just one of about 7 or 8 guys who could tear England apart. And again, the question is always: are the French up for this? Are they going to come out and play, or are they going to be, a typical shrugging French and holding their hands up and poof?
The sort of main thing, I suppose, riding on this game is who comes first and second, and in turn who you do then play in the quarter-final that Johnny May can start worrying about hopefully from next Sunday. In your eyes, I know that on paper you'd say England probably beat France, Wales probably don't slip up, and therefore we play Australia in the quarter-final. Do you think, I mean, I know it's a kind of pointless exercise, but do you think a match-up against Australia suits us slightly better than Wales? I feel like they've had our number a little bit recently, Wales, and I know it's a neutral venue and Cardiff's a different proposition and all that, but I personally would probably rather be facing Australia. Do you agree?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you're dead right in the fact that Wales have had England's number in big games. I'm not talking about the friendlies so much a few weeks ago, but in the Six Nations and actually in the last World Cup, Wales have had England's number, that's for sure. And there is a bit of psychological block for England about playing against the Welsh. I don't think they really played well compared to the Ireland game in Dublin earlier in the Six Nations. That was 80 minutes of really intense and really good rugby by England. They've not really achieved that against Wales for a long time now. They've done sort of 20 minutes here, 40 minutes here, but they've not put together an 80-minute display of any sort of substance against the Welsh, and that's what you need to do to win those big knockout games. Having said that, actually, I think probably in terms of this World Cup form at the moment, I think Australia are probably playing a bit better than Wales. They're a far more dangerous side. I think Wales look good. They beat Australia obviously, and they look good, but they're not. They're carrying on from where they left off in the Six Nations. They're not scoring lots of tries. They're not creating lots of opportunities. They're very, very tough to break down. They've got some very resilient leaders in the squad, and that's sort of dragging them through at the moment. But I don't think they're a team that's going to put 50 points on England, for example, whereas Australia, should things click, you just never know. They could actually really cut loose, and they could be very, very dangerous. So I guess if you pushed one of the England players, they'd probably say, yeah, we wouldn't mind playing Australia in the quarter-final, but it's 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Sorry to sit on the fence.
I reckon whoever we face, we're going to do the business, George. You certainly did the business there. Lovely to speak to you. Thank you for your time. George Tudor there, former England hooker who played in the 2007 World Cup final. Now, Martin Allen, on the rugby front, I want to talk to you about team talks because New Zealand ended up thrashing Namibia 71-9. They scored 11 tries in the process, but after half an hour, they only led by a single point against the lowest ranked team in the tournament. So this is the All Blacks, the best team, the most highly rated rugby nation of all time, struggling against little old Namibia. One of their players said that coach Steve Hansen delivered a, and I quote, 10 out of 10 rocket at half-time. Obviously, they improved vastly in the second half. Are you a believer in the hairdryer? Are you a believer in the 10 out of 10 rocket? How often, if you go and really start screaming at half-time, does it work?
Do you know what, Johnny? I've done it a few times. Let rip.
That would be frightening, by the way.
And my jumper comes off.
Oh, dear.
Then I undo the shirt buttons and the tie comes off.
Oh, dear.
And then the shirt that's normally sweaty and wet from perspiration and anger, raging face, the buttons come undone, the shirt comes off, and you could be stood there. I have been stood there, Johnny, looking round. Can you say effing and blinding?
You can say effing and blinding, but if
Is
you
that
couldn't,
okay?
you'd have said it anyway.
Pointing the fingers, and normally I'd pick on the biggest, strongest, most manest player in
so
my
you'd have
team.
gone for me.
Yeah. And threaten him and say, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, blah, 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 blah. And then leave it and then pick my stuff up off the floor that's been thrown and just walk out the room. Then I go around the corner and sit in my office and have a cup of tea or sit in the corridor and just let it all happen. And then, obviously, you've got to pick your shirt back on, which is soaking wet because you're all stressed. So you try and find another shirt to put on because you don't want to go out for the second half of your shirt that's soaking wet. And then you've got to hope that they get back in it and get back on it. But what I've learned, Johnny, that don't work.
Does it not?
No.
Can I just ask, just quickly, before we find out what does work, what's the rationale behind taking the shirt off?
Anger.
Yeah,
Credible Hulk. You know that
what, you're
Tasmanian
tensing
devil.
and the
yeah.
buttons rip.
Yeah.
Okay.
But once, I can't say who the player was. Once I pointed the finger at him. He was much, much bigger than me. He was strong. He was big, and he was like he is an absolute tank. And I threatened him, proper, like, come on. And he's like, if he'd have stood up, like, oh my god, he'd have dwarfed me. It was like. Afterwards, I thought about it and I pulled him afterwards. I shook his hand and said, I didn't mean to go that mad. And he said, no, don't worry about it. But if he'd have stood up, oh my God.
Don't worry about it. I could have had you anyway.
He would have done without a shadow of a doubt. The best one, Johnny, this is the contrast and the much, much better way to do it, was I had a good player playing in midfield who wasn't playing well. And I think they all expected me to rant and rave and shout and scream and point the finger and threaten and try and aggravate him. And I stood in front of him or 5 yards away from him. And I didn't normally stand in team meetings. I normally sit down so you're on the same eye level so you can see them all and chat with them all. And I said to him, you're not having a good game. I know exactly how you feel. To help you get back into it, try and make your first tackle and make it nice and clean and just supply and make a decent, simple pass rather than looking for something too good. Don't go running around. Just stay in the middle and get the nice calmer back into your game, because obviously he was getting upset with himself, and the more tense he was getting, the worse he was getting. So I gave him full backing, and then when you go over and put your hand on the back of his head and give him a rub and tell him he's a good player, you know you're a good player. Come on, just take your time. We've all been through these games, me more than anybody, and God bless, he played well. And that is a far better way to do it than losing your rag and going madder.
Well, there is the secret. Encouragement, words of wisdom, and above all else, keep your shirt on.
Love sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Follow @Love Sport Radio on Twitter for all the latest news, views, competitions, and the best bits from your favourite station. Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it. Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes. This is Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen. And Guy has all your latest headlines and weather.
Yeah, this afternoon we found out Tottenham captain Hugo Lloris has been ruled out of action until the new year. The goalkeeper dislocated his elbow in Saturday's Premier League defeat at Brighton. Spurs say he suffered ligament damage but won't require surgery. Andy Murray's battled back from a set down to reach the second round of the Shanghai Masters tennis. The former world number one beat Argentina's Juan Ignacio Londero 2-6, 6-2, 6-3 as he continues his return to singles action. Carl Edmund lost in straight sets to Jeremy Shardy, though, meaning he'll lose his status as British number one. And in cricket, Chris Silverwood says he's thrilled and honoured to be the new head coach of the England team. He steps up from his role as bowling coach to replace Trevor Bayliss, who left after the Ashes this summer. Silverwood led Essex to the county championship title in 2017, and the managing director of England Cricket, Ashley Giles, says they've appointed a winner. And in your weather overnight tonight, lows of 12 degrees, a fair bit of rain around as well. It looks like tomorrow, not great in the afternoon, I'm afraid. Bit of a brighter start, highs of 17 degrees, with plenty of rain around, possibly even a thundery shower in the early afternoon. That's the latest here for you on Love Sport Drive. We're here till 7, of course.
Thanks, Guy. Well, one of our top stories this evening is, of course, Manchester United's struggles. They lost again against Newcastle at the weekend, and now only Brighton, Watford and Southampton have worse records than United since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took permanent charge. To put that in context, he's been there a while now. He took over partway through last season. The form that the club has shown since he took over, if you spun that across an entire season, they would genuinely be relegated. Martin, does he still deserve time and patience?
Yes, I think he does. They've given him the job and let him spend money. Not enough, in my opinion. He
spent it well, the money he had.
Yeah,
too.
He did. He's brought in some really good players, and thankfully the players that he's brought in have done really well. There's players there that, in my opinion, shouldn't be there. They should have been moved on, and they haven't replaced a centre forward. So Lukaku goes for, 70 million? I think he went for. The fact that nobody came in to replace him is just quite, that's just poor football management, isn't it? And you can't expect to win games if you haven't got a good centre forward. And Rashford playing on one side, getting in behind, and then Martial being part of that as well. But then Martial's come out and said he doesn't want to play on the wing. I only want to play like a 10-year-old boy in the school team. You know
Theo
what I mean?
Walcott level.
That's not acceptable. When you've got players there that don't want to be there, so you're always going to have problems when those things are going on. But he's got a lot to do. He's got a lot to do, but and he looks very stressed. He looks very strained. But it's looking like it needs massive investment, and a lot of those players need kicking out.
Well, how's this for a stat? Premier League goals since August. This is the list of players with 2. Aaron Connolly, Aaron Cresswell, Adama Traore, Jeff Hendrick, N'Golo Conte, Ricardo Pereira and Manchester United. Now, we've had a lot of chat about a lack of centre-halves at this club for a while, but the problem is the strikers, surely, or at least the creative players.
But it's a whole team's responsibility, is it not? I know where you're coming from, Johnny. The problem is goal scoring, because United's defensive record, I've been looking at this today, it's not exceptional, but it's by far and away not the worst in the Premier League. And I know United aren't 20th in the table, so you wouldn't expect it to be the worst, but it's not like either of those columns is top or bottom, but it is in the sort of goals scored, goals for column that it's more glaring. If you think we scored 4, I say we, obviously being a Man United fan, United scored 4 goals in the first game against Chelsea. I think they've managed 5 in the 7 games since, or the 8 games since. It's shocking. You know, it really, really is. Whether there's injuries or not, the point is that whether there's an injury to the striker or not, to have so few other players chipping
options.
Pogba hasn't got a goal in open play for 26 games. Marcus Rashford has 1 goal in open play in his last 16 games. That's just a couple of examples. There's other players not pulling their weight as well, but they're 2 of the more high profile, better paid, better known players. And I think as well, when you consider the sort of type of football that we started playing when Ollie came in, when you consider the teams that he played in, where there was good defenders, really, really good defenders, and at times very miserly defences as a whole. But Ferguson's teams didn't typically grind out 1-0 week after week. There were high-scoring games. It was a we'll score more than you approach. He would build his squad around having 4 strikers. Now you can barely get a shot on target against Newcastle or AZ Alkmaar.
For me, I wouldn't bring that game against Alkmaar into it because that was not really his full team.
3 we managed against Newcastle yesterday.
And then with the Newcastle game, we did speak earlier about the amount of players that he's got out injured and not available, and he hasn't got much to come in. The fact that Ashley Young is still playing at 34 at left back, you've got to ask, why is that? And I thought the centre-back played well yesterday. Tuanzebe,
yeah.
I thought he looks a good one for the future. Wan-Bissaka, when he comes in, that looks like it could be a good partnership there on that right-hand side. Greenwood looks like it's a little bit too early for him at the moment, but maybe as a sub coming on for the last 20 minutes at Old Trafford to get his confidence up. But as a centre-forward without Lukaku and not replacing him, I mean, that is just basic. Any level, you'd never, ever let that happen. You can't.
I think you're right to point out, as you did there, the fullbacks, for example, because I started by saying to Johnny, it's the burden that falls on the whole team. Take Liverpool, for example. They didn't win the title last year. They probably will this year, if you had to predict, but they'll be there or thereabouts. They had, I think I'm right in saying off the top of my head, 23 assists provided directly by Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson between them, 12 and 11. I think they both broke the record for number of assists by a defender in a Premier League season. Incredible. And that's before you mention however many the likes of Firmino, Salah, Mane, Milner, Henderson, any of those players, the actual attackers, if you like, in the team, provided as well. So United, yes, we're missing Pogba, we're missing Martial, and maybe they're 2 of our most gifted attacking players, but to have so little else, it's uninspiring. Diogo Dalot was a £20 million youngster who came highly rated from Portugal. That trio of buys, by the way, 2 summers ago when we brought in Fred, Dalot and Lee Grant, that has got to be the single worst set of summer transfers by any club ever. Well, that was Mourinho. He was manager. Whether or not he had the say over the transfers, we don't know. He'd tell you that he didn't have any say, probably now.
Bailey's injured as well, isn't he?
He's out injured till the new year, but if you ask most United fans, I think they would say that's probably not one we can point to and say that's a big sort of detrimental.
He's not going to get you in the top 4, is he?
No, I don't think he is.
Probably a middle of the road type player.
On paper, Lindelof and Maguire is the first choice pairing.
Where was Lindelof yesterday?
He's injured at the moment as well.
So that's another player out injured.
Yeah.
So you've got to say to defend him, to back him, to defend him, they have got a lot of injuries, and to make judgments on managers when they've got a lot of injuries is not really fair. It's not. Man City are having a poor start by their high standards, and without Laporte and Kompany going, John Stones being out, they're losing games. And it doesn't matter who your managers are, that is going to be the case. And now we can see that Manchester United players look like they're losing confidence. Yeah. They look like they've lost guidance. The manager looks totally stressed out and worn out. And it's probably erring towards moving in that direction of probably looking very soon to bring in a new manager, I would say.
I agree with what you're saying about the injuries and all the rest of it, but the point is you can't pretend, and it's going along with the idea that there may be a change coming sooner or later. Ollie probably is not up to the job. Those 15 games or whatever it was from the appointment or the, if you like, interim appointment to actually getting the permanent job seem further and further away with every game that passes, and it seems clear now that what people wondered at the time, is this just a kind of impact, a short-term thing? Yes, it probably is. But the malaise that we're talking about with United's attack and with the players underperforming, that was going on even when some of those players were in the team. You can't say that Martial, for example, was on a par with Kane and Aguero and Firmino and the other strikers in the league, or that Pogba was creating as much as Kevin De Bruyne or even James Maddison, for example.
Pogba came good when Mourinho left.
Yeah.
And he stepped up. He made goals. He scored goals. I think his assists through that time was the highest at the time in the Premier League for those few weeks that he came in, because he was sub week in, week out, wasn't he? Mourinho wouldn't play him because of his bad attitude, and Mourinho clearly wanted him out. And as soon as he made him sub, it was virtually the end of Mourinho. He knew he was kind of going on the back of that.
I've always said, sorry, just to interrupt, the season before we had a last 16 Champions League game against Sevilla, a tie that we should have been getting through one way or the other. We drew the first leg 0-0, and he left Pogba on the bench. He played Scott McTominay, who, by the way, has been one of our better players so far this season. But at the time, he was maybe 21 years old, barely played a game. He's picking him instead of the £90 million midfielder. And I thought then, I didn't predict everything that was going to happen, but looking back, I felt that was probably the moment you knew Mourinho was counting down to going one way or the other, him leaving and getting fired, whatever it was going to be, that something had to give, because it was between him and Pogba. And it's a bit more complex than that now. That's a bigger problem for United now. They'd love it to just be about Pogba. You've got a squad that is so lacking in quality, so lacking in inspiration, so lacking in...
And now confidence.
And confidence as well, which is an intangible but vital, as you can tell us better than anyone else.
But you could see it in that performance yesterday. They look scared, they look worried, they look nervy, they look like they've lost their direction and their focus. McTominay's doing his absolute utmost to get that group going, but on his young shoulders, it looks like it's probably too much for him as well to try and stimulate and motivate, to get them going, and to find and get something out. I think there's too many bad apples in the dressing room. I really do.
The only time when United look in any way threatening, in any way decent, dangerous, like their old selves, whatever term you want to use, is when there is a lot of space and there is an opportunity for a fast break. And it's for two reasons. It's one, because if United have one strength remaining in amongst all the carnage that is unfolding, it is that they have some quick players. Dan James in particular, gas, wheels, whatever you want to call it.
James and Rashford. Plays wider on the right hand side.
Yeah, exactly. And Martial, when he's fit, he's quick. There's a couple of other pacey players in there, and you saw it against Arsenal. That's what the goal came from, the McTominay goal. It came from a fast break. But the other point, the psychological point, I think, is that is a time when instinct takes over. You're not thinking, you're not kind of playing to a game plan, you're not trying to break a team down. You're just playing on instinct, you're filling space, you're doing what's often the only thing that you can. It's playing one through ball to the one player that's on. And I think that's quite telling. When it's coming down to things that are coached, how do you break down a 4-4-2 or a 5-4-1 or whatever it might be? How are you going to go through the middle? Are you going to go out wide? Are you going to use a single pivot or a double pivot? Anything creative, anything requiring anything like that. Real tactics, if you like. And this is where I think Solskjaer and the coaches need a bit of scrutiny as well, because we are on the ball more than Newcastle, for example, and still creating nothing. But that is where it all goes completely out the window, and it's only when there's that open space and a fast break that there's any threat at all.
And I think you make a very good point on the pace, but how profoundly depressing that we're sitting here not very many years after their total dominance of English football and saying, well, United have still got something. They're fast. I've got mates who are fast, who can't kick a football to save their lives. It's a very good point. Dan James's pace is a weapon. Rashford's pace is a threat. But this idea...
What are they doing next Sunday week, Johnny? We've got a game against Liverpool.
Exactly. This idea that you're like, oh, well, they're quick, so we'll crack on. It's Manchester United.
Yeah, but Man City have been going past them it's not a couple of seasons.
It's a while.
This has been years.
English football changed on a weekend in October 2011 when Manchester City beat Man United 6-1.
Yes.
And I know Man United won the title the year after that, and then Ferguson left, and that is the really pivotal moment, but I don't think it's ever been quite the same for United and for English football as a whole since that weekend.
I loved it.
Yeah, I bet you did.
It brought me joy.
Wanna know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
We're joined in the studio by the wonderful Matt Beadle, who will be carrying you forward from 7 for the fan shows. He's back from Barcelona, no longer a stag, but there was a rutting performance from Arsenal at the weekend. Unusually professional, unusually coherent, and a 1-0 win, courtesy of a goal from David Luiz.
Yep, his first for the club. Fantastic. Incredibly. Yeah, very good. He scores at home, David Luiz. I think it's 11 out of the 12 that he's scored in his career have all come at home in the Premier League.
Martin, what did you make of David Luiz being a central part of marshalling a midfield and a defence to a clean sheet and scoring the winner?
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. But he will make errors as the season goes by, as we've already seen. Numerous, he'll give opportunities away.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do magical moments. For 8 million, was he a good deal? Probably yes. But for where Chelsea are going and what they're doing, he probably didn't want David Luiz around, because it would have stopped the development of, what's his name, Tomori?
Fikayo Tomori. Yeah, I think that was essentially the discussion that they had, wasn't it? But when you look at the Arsenal defence now, which is, it was a...
who was the centre-halves?
So you had David Luiz in, Callum Chambers was in at right back for that one, and Socrates was the centre half with David Luiz.
Holding, is he?
Well, this is the chat, because both Holding, Bellerin, both played against Forest and against Sunderland Liège as well, and both performed very well. Kieran Tierney as well, playing in both of those games. Two clean sheets. Basically, Tierney and Holding are very close to returning. Emery thinks Bellerin maybe needs a couple more games outside of the Premier League before returning.
He played Friday night, didn't he, in the under-23s and got 90 minutes, Bellerin.
Right, yeah, so he played against Liège. Well, I don't think he played on the Friday because he played against Liège on the Thursday.
Did
he play again?
90 minutes. What day was that on?
I think it was before the Liège game at the end of last week, but he was
before,
that was
right.
his blooding.
Yeah, and now you're looking at the case where Arsenal's defence doesn't look too bad, because once those players come back, especially with Callum Chambers being man of the match at the weekend as well, it's looking all right. Yep, he was voted, Arsenal's man of the match in particular, played very, very well. He's got a great relationship with David Luiz, spoke very highly of him after the game. There is a little bit of talk about a move for Willy Bolly in January. I don't know how true that is or the strength of that, because of course they've got William Saliba coming in at the end of next season as well.
Wolves have got so much money, I don't think they need to sell anyone.
No, not at the moment. And after that result, of course, it's the Man City show at 9 p.m. as well, so a nice little link into that game.
Arsenal boy, just before you go on, Saka, what's happened to him at the weekend? The young one.
In terms of his performance?
Yeah, did he play?
He did play, yeah, he started again.
What was he like?
He was okay. Yeah, he was okay. I don't think he had as much impact, if you could say he had an impact in the United game, but he was okay. I think the chat now from the Arsenal fans, especially from what I've been hearing from the guys who are going to come on from Gunnerstown, is that Martinelli needs to get a shot.
Oh, yeah.
Martinelli is the absolute
Very, very
business. Well, Arsenal, striker rich. Lacazette coming back from injury. Aubameyang, brilliant. Martinelli breaking through. Which leads us very nicely to the Brentford fan show, who haven't got a single striker, as far as I can tell. Another loss at the weekend. Millwall coming up. Not a particularly good feeling, presumably.
It's an odd feeling. It's very up and down at the moment with Brentford, and especially when you look at Marcus Forss getting another goal for AFC Wimbledon at the weekend. That's 4 in 5 for him, just returned from suspension. Thomas Frank, when he went on loan to AFC Wimbledon, did say he's the best finisher we've got at the club. Perhaps shouldn't have said that, but said he needs a bit more experience. He's gone down to League One with AFC Wimbledon. To be honest, I think they probably should have kept him at the club. I think when you've got Ollie Watkins, who has scored 7 goals this season.
Have they got a recall clause?
I don't know. I don't know about a recall clause in
Ollie,
January.
Ollie Watkins has got 7. Is he playing centre forward?
He's playing up top, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 of
So
them
they have got
came in
centre
one
forward
game.
then, haven't they?
Well, they haven't. I think if you ask most Brentford fans, they haven't got a conventional 9 who is consistently going to score them goals in the way that Neil Maupay did.
7's quite a good tally in it.
It is a very good tally. Ollie Watkins himself does admit that the fans need to be patient with him. I think the formation is a stickler at the moment for Brentford fans. They've shored up the defence, but the argument is the money that they spent, which is what they'd never spent before in the club's history, perhaps should be bringing better results.
Right, okay. When do they got Mill? When do they play?
So they've got an
Millwall?
international break, and then it's Millwall, of course, who scored 2 goals for the first time this season, having seen Neil Harris depart. So they are potentially on the up.
Yeah.
Man City fan show from 9, as you said. What on earth happened there?
I'm looking forward to this one because we're always positive on the Man City fan show, and that's not a problem because 9 times out of 10 they always get the result. But this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the guys react to this one. Nigel Rothband, who does the Man City fan show podcast, is, you know, City till I die, pretty much, he says at the end of every single one of his emails to me. But I'm just interested to see what he makes of the performance, because up until now they've talked about the 5 points. They've gone, do you know what? Liverpool will drop points. It's absolutely fine. We've got nothing to worry about. It's 8 points now, and the way Liverpool are playing and the way things are going for Liverpool, and the fact that Man City lost at home to Wolves, first time in the top flight since 1979, is quite telling for me. The injuries are catching up with them.
Do you think this is the start of the transformation in Manchester of United coming to now go above City, and City going to drop down the league, and United are going to climb up and overtake them in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think Pep Guardiola's under pressure.
I don't think so.
Can we grab that soundbite and just play it in the Man City show?
Yeah, completely out of context. From 10, well, it could have been 10. Villa absolutely on fire against Norwich. Good signs for Wesley Moraes. Not just that he scored 2. I know he missed the pen and he should have scored the rebound. But what I liked about his performance was the way he celebrated, in that he basically didn't. There seemed to be a belief there. Yeah, obviously I scored. Yeah, obviously I scored again. He's a man who is growing in confidence. Do we think he's going to grow in goal scoring as well?
I think so, yeah. And the fans actually gave him a bit of stick last week just because, listen, he's 22, he's young. He's a young lad. They bought him for a lot of money. But I think, and we say this many
Where did
times
they
on the
get him
station,
from?
Club Bruges.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of the time I think we're too quick to give up on players who are too young. He's 22. He's just come into the Premier League. You know, he bagged a brace at the weekend, and I agree with you. The celebration I thought was great. Regarding the penalty, it was a very good double save from McGovern, to be fair.
Okay, I think it was a dodgy penalty and a dodgy
The penalty
follow-up,
wasn't
but
great.
good goalkeeping, very good goalkeeping, particularly from a third-choice stopper. The question now for Villa, which I'm sure you'll be getting into, is how they can keep this kind of performance consistently. And another lively one, I assume, at 10:30. It's Derby, still, I'm sure, basking in the fallout from all of the controversy, but results looking up slightly on the pitch.
Yeah, looking up, another win, a 1-0 win, and
Who scored?
Tom Lawrence.
Wow, that goes some way to...
Was he booed when he scored?
No, he wasn't booed. There was a weird atmosphere inside Pride Park, and we're going to talk about this with Simon Long from Rams Writer, in the sense that both Lawrence and Mason Bennett obviously received the maximum fine that they could from the club. And it was a cross from Tom Lawrence, fine, but it went in and he didn't celebrate. You could tell the players came up to him and they grabbed him as you would, but he just put his hands up and didn't celebrate. So a sense of professionalism there from Tom Lawrence.
For a first.
Exactly. So, no, he wasn't roundly booed, but there is a bit of ill feeling around the whole situation, I think.
Very, very
Tough one,
odd.
isn't it, that?
Very tough.
Very tough indeed. Matt, sounds like a cracking
Thank
few
you.
shows. Looking forward to them. I'll be tuning in, particularly for the mighty Arsenal and our new hero, David Give Us a Goal, Louise.
Yes. You've come all chirpy about Arsenal. You've been a bit quiet for the last few days, haven't you? In that Champions League place, you must be chuffed to bits.
I
The
think-
forwards, the defenders, you look like you've got a decent team and a fantastic captain.
Well, less about the results and the placement, more about the clean sheet. I was fully confident Arsenal would win that game 3-1 or draw that game 2-2. It did not cross my... And they could have conceded a few, to be fair. But it did not cross my mind that old chant of 1-0 to the Arsenal would come to the fore. Martin, it's been a pleasure, as ever, to spend 4 hours in your delightful company. It has flown by. He's checking his watch. Is it that time already? It is. It's been a pleasure in your company as well, listening at home. Stay with us here on Love Sport, Arsenal fan show from 7. And the Posh Boys are back tomorrow at 3.
Man United are back. Every day someone dies waiting for a transplant.
3 minutes.
From spring 2020, the law around organ donation in England is changing to allow more people to pass on more organs to save more lives. Unless you choose to opt out or in an excluded group, all adults will be considered as a possible organ donor when they die. Whatever your choice, make it clear to your family and closest friends to ensure your decision is honoured. To find out more, or for the choice to opt out, visit organdonation.nhs.uk. Pass it on.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil